McGuire backpedaling, running out of time, spinning away, and nobody open. Now he flips it up into traffic and makes a mistake. Trying to force the play, and it's intercepted. BJ Mays rumbling down inside the 10.
This is 365 Sports.
Bowling Green with no timeouts. Nick Singleton. Touchdown, Penn State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Klubnik, undaunted, unafraid, complete, Turner, touchdown!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Why not?
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Jennings on the play fake, slides it upfield. Matthew Hickner off to the races. Hickner at the 30, full speed, and the big tight end goes 75. It's a Pony Express.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Welcome in. Smokey is, I guess he's in Florida now. He was on his way yesterday, but now he's in Florida and visiting his brothers. Craig here alongside. The rest of the cast is here. Emery Winter, who's kind of been an every other day showing up in studio. He does his work. I mean, it's not like a big deal. People can work from home now, but he has a secret life that apparently is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then he's just here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which is fine. It's cool, but I don't know what's going on. I'm concerned since he's the son I've never had that it could be anything from meth ring to, just maybe like a gambling thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, Paul.
I mean,
I have no idea. Yeah,
he's from Oklahoma. I mean, he's just a jump across the line and, roll the bones. I don't know, but
good to have him here, though.
Yeah, it is.
Welcome in, everybody.
Yeah. Welcome in. We've got 4 guests today. Christy Dosh, who's written a book about the athletes' NIL playbook. She'll join us at 3:40. Scott Docterman on the genesis of the Big Ten's AQ model. Micah Butel, College Baseball Central. Craig Smook's Off the Radar, and John Machota of The Athletic to talk a little Cowboys OTAs. We'll also do the Ohio State schedule after John, and, of course, my top 5. That's all coming up. So let's start out with this as we get into the stack here. The SoCon working group, worked through how committees and what their role should be moving forward, making decisions for postseason play. And so the SoCon came up with this. Committee should make the best decisions for the sport and its championships. To avoid and preserve transparency, we must shift to a metric-based selections and made away from selective committee votes. And so that kind of aligns with a lot of things that the SEC has been saying. And I personally think that the model has to be somewhere in between the, committee selecting what if it's 5 plus 11 teams, and a computer selecting those 11 teams. I think there's got to be some devil in the details there, but we see more data-driven things going on. I think the question becomes, Craig, if they go to a majorly data-driven model, it's the data that will get in that is the key, and whose data is the most important data.
I think it's only logical to not want to leave it all in the hands of one entity or the other. So, interesting at the SoCon, just the timing of them coming out and saying this in line with what we've talked about to exhausting lengths over the last week, the whole discussion about the playoff and its future and who's in charge and what they want and who wants this and who opposes that. And so I guess when that was starting to actually cool down, they throw a tiny twig back on the fire to spark it up a little bit and just kind of add more to that conversation. And I'm in the middle on it. I do think that to leave it all in the hands of the committee just creates way too many biases that are involved, and I don't trust people to always make the right decision, especially when it's all the same circles of people that are making all the choices that we're complaining about right now. So now we want that same group of people to now choose another level of how this all operates. Now they're going to choose ultimately if it's a committee that does 75% or it's metrics that do 25% or the other way around or different percentages and other things that are put into play. But yeah, I think if you can eliminate the human element or at least balance it out as best as possible to create the most even playing field, whatever that looks like, whatever that metric or that group or whatever that combination that leads to it just being even for everybody, no matter who you are and where you are, that's all I want to see. I don't know how to create that. Otherwise, I would suggest it, but I don't think it's going heavy committee. I don't think it's also going all computer. I think there's got to be a middle ground and as much of a lack of subjectivity as possible. So yeah, I'm with Michael Cross, I think, for the most part here. I think we all want to see transparency, which we didn't always get from the playoff committee. The SEC's big bitch right now is the committee itself, and they want to make sure that the committee doesn't do exactly what we're talking about because last year they feel like they got screwed even though they didn't. And so, yeah, I think everybody's probably on the same page here. And you'll hear well, you all hated the BCS. Well, that was when you had the two teams made it. We didn't have a 14-team playoff with the BCS. That never existed. So that's apples and oranges. It's not the same thing. It's a straw man because that never was what we were dealing with. We were dealing with two teams get in and nobody else. So I don't want to go straight to that, but some version of that combined with humans and maybe whatever else, like, yeah, I'll be all good with that.
So Craig, you said you didn't have the answers. I don't have the answers. Garrett, do you have the answers?
I do not have the answers.
Guess who does? Surprisingly enough, the NCAA.
Oh, I bet.
When it comes, no, this is legitimate. They've already figured this out. They just haven't applied it to the right thing. Garrett, what is your favorite sport?
It would be college football.
Okay, what is your second favorite sport?
Hockey.
Okay, and you love the Frozen Four, correct?
I do love the Frozen Four.
Okay, do you know how they select the Frozen Four?
I do not.
Okay, I'm gonna educate you. So buckle in, folks. They have 6 conferences that receive automatic bids for their champions. So their 6 conference champions get automatic bids. Then there are 10 other at-large bids as a 16-team playoff that ultimately leads to the Frozen Four. After that part of the field is determined via conference championships, the remaining teams are awarded at-largest bid by the selection committee, which has 3 people from the East region and 3 people from the West region. Who these people are does not matter in this discussion, just in case you're wondering. They could be anybody. They're faceless, nameless hockey people. And according to the pre-championship manual that they came up with a couple years ago, to be eligible during the at-large process, a program must have a one-loss record of at least 500 and must have scheduled a minimum of 20 games against D1 competition. The committee also takes into account strength of schedule, the availability, eligibility of student athletes for the NCAA championships, and the RPI. The RPI is determined through 3 variables. A team's one-loss record is 25%, opponent's winning percentage is 21%, and opponent's winning percentage is 54%, which helps determine strength of schedule. So if the points awarded in RPI for a win in a postseason conference tournament game are fewer than the average, this is too much. We'll stop there. So there's a formula that exists that you could modify to do football essentially tomorrow. Will they do this? I don't know. But they're already doing it, much like the NCAA and football was already doing a playoff on the FCS level. And they were already doing selection committees with everything else, with baseball and basketball and softball and all of that. They're already doing that. So they kind of know how to do these things. They just need to de-footballize them and get the cooks out of the kitchen, so to speak.
Yeah, and so that's in line with this, obviously, and that seems like it would make a lot of sense. You kind of lost me through some of the verbiage there because I'm not a math wizard and all of that, but it all sounded like it made sense for my brain, and sounded like it was pretty unbiased and just takes into account actual facts rather than saying before the season's even started that your schedule's better than that schedule because the league you play in, which is maybe true some of the time, but is not true all the time, even though it's used like that's the case all the time, which is what we need to get rid of some of that. So, yeah, I think that sounds logical. I just want them to find the best fit and the best way to make this as good of a tournament as possible, whatever that takes. I don't have all the answers, like I said a few minutes ago, and I'm willing to hear out various ideas like we were talking about yesterday with the whole debate about the various formats. I lean one way, but I see the side of the other, way you can do it and how that would also work perhaps well. But on this, I think to take the committee out of it as much as possible is what I think everybody can pretty much agree on, except maybe the committee themselves. And so if you had a formula that would work and everybody could agree to it, which is the big hang up, here's the thing. There's a lot of great ideas, and then the people that you need to agree to them don't want to agree to them because the big problem I see here is there's not enough bias. There's not enough bias in here. You can't guarantee somebody before you start this that they're going to get their cake and be able to eat it too, which is basically what they're trying to do right now. They're trying to set it up ahead of time to where they get their wishes before we've even started the season yet, right? This is like making it black and white and very clear. So I don't know if there's enough bias baked in, which makes it the best way to do things, it sounds like, but also means it probably won't be the way they do things because they don't, as we see, they don't usually do the very best thing that makes the most sense. They do what's the best thing that enough people will agree to get what they want and, walk away happy.
I mean, like you can walk to the college football committee, and they know this, and the powers that be, they know about hockey, although the SEC doesn't have anybody playing in the Frozen Four. But you can go to Greg Sankey, because Tony Bettini and his people know because they've got teams that do play in it. And they,
the thing I do worry about is like with computer stuff. I do think there has to be a human element because I think you can very easily skew the computer.
So that's what the committee's there to do.
Yeah,
that's why they have those things.
I'm saying you can't just do one or the other. There has to be a balance. So like you can't go like there should be no committee whatsoever. It's like no, you have to have a committee for part of this deal. And it shouldn't be all computers, and vice versa shouldn't be the other way either. So, there's a happy medium here, and this seems like it would be in that vicinity.
Yeah, so, like, if you have that, those metrics they give, there's also going to be some ones that might get into the top 16 that you're going to say, well, they would have been, but they don't qualify because they didn't have the right number. Like, you encourage, they're encouraging tough scheduling in that format, in the RPI. So the 8 games, 9 games thing is solved by that metric in that they've set a standard for what your schedule, a bare minimum for what your schedule needs to be. So, all of that. And yes, the SEC is very concerned about winning one more game, I guess, in that format or not being taken into account. But I mean, if they want the math, there's the math. They've already worked it out. You just really need to tweak it for the football, the football formula of it all, because you're going to have at least 8 games against Division I opponents. So you just have to say you have to play at least 10 or 11. You can only play one FCS game, whatever it is.
Yeah, don't play your in-conference team. Go play somebody else that's in Division I guess, is what you could do. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's ways around it. Yeah. Everybody
has this many conference games. You can only play one FCS game and all that. And then everything can stay pretty much the same, And look, in my opinion, if you wanted to keep the bowls, just instead of doing the conference tie-ins and all that stuff, just roll the thing all the way down to how many bowls there are and match that up crazy so you can get wild and crazy bowl matchups. I mean, heck, we got a conference bowl matchup. It was one of the best bowl games last year in BYU and Colorado. I wouldn't care if that happened again. Like, again, as a bowl game, it's extra so you can keep it all. You have more college football. People can follow along. The rankings mean a lot more week to week.
I just slightly disagree. That was not a great game.
That was a great game.
That was a blowout.
It was a blowout. One of the, I guess, more I was looking forward to it a lot more.
Yeah, it was one of
the
more intriguing bowl games. I do think that, as anticipated, the bowl season left something to be desired. It wasn't quite what it felt like in previous years. I think that has some to do with the playoff system. That has a lot to do with NIL as well, and transfer portal and all the various things that have been annoyances or to some degree for people. So yeah, I do think in a bowl season that lacked a lot of enticing matchups outside of the playoff, that was one of those on paper that looked really good. And then when you got to game time, it actually wasn't very entertaining unless you were a BYU fan or an anti-Colorado fan. And then it was an awesome bowl game for you. But yeah, that was good on paper, not so much in practice. But yeah, I mean, look, man, we've talked about the playoff ad nauseum, and all the stuff over the last week really lit a fire underneath it and added some gasoline with Sankey's comments, and then the retorts from the other league leaders, or maybe not even retorts, but just like the kind of acknowledgement of what he was saying, and kind of an agree to disagree, or we do agree on this, and we're all going to keep talking and moving forward. Like, clearly nothing is settled. We're going to have to get to a point where it is settled sooner rather than later, because this has to go into practice for next year, not this upcoming, but the year after, obviously. So I think the conversations will continue, but I do think there's other areas you could look to. If you're going to sit there and constantly point to soccer for inspiration, then yeah, why not look at college hockey, which is, right there and under your same umbrella, and take some ideas from them, or anything else that's kind of in that same vein. I'm all for trying to make this as logical and transparent and just I guess I already said logical, but yeah, logical and transparent process as possible. That's what I think most fans are looking for, not something that's already pre-stuffed to the gills with propaganda or twisted by humans. Let's get some mix of computers and humans, and let's get to playing football, because that's really why we're all here, right? To put the best matchups on paper and see who the best team in the country is. So I'm all for the best way to do that, and if this is the best way, then count me as an in.
Yeah. So again, there's a way. It's out there. There's a way to dam the river, and if they want to grasp it, they don't really have to look that far, and they can. The committee doesn't have to meet every week. The computers can meet, and then after it's all said and done, and that last week, the committee can get together and run through the last couple weeks and run through scenarios, and then after championship week, look at what the numbers say. Make those determinations, have the arguments, because I'm sure that when you get, especially between, say, 12 and 20, a lot of years might be kind of muddled when it comes to that formula of like, okay, who didn't hit this criteria, all of that. A team could be 11-1, in maybe even in a power conference, but because their schedule didn't work out for them that way, like, they could be lower seeded or barely get in because the 9-3 team, like, was able to follow those rules, and I say that able to, because scheduling's not quite as, it's easier than they make it, but still there's things you got to jump over, and of course your strength of schedule metrics could not work out for you all that well. You could be in a tough league, and then you wind up with the Big 12, you can think, man, we've got the hardest schedule in the Big 12, and then it does what the Big 12 does and flips upside down year to year, and your strength of schedule is crap. So that's what the committee's there to determine, like, oh, well, they thought they were going to have a tough schedule, but all these teams went 4-8, so that's what it's there for. So yeah, I think the SoCon has told them what to do. Let's see if they follow it. Some conference realignment news. It's not major, but Villanova football is on their way to the Patriot League. Obviously, they're in the Big East in basketball, and they're not a Division I football team or an FBS football team, but they're on their way to the Patriot League. So I don't really have any other comment on this, but way to go, guys. Enjoy the Patriot League.
Yeah, I mean, I probably should have just left it out if we didn't really have a whole lot to say on it, honestly. But yeah, I mean, good move for them, I suppose. I mean, I'll say I suppose it is, because why would they be making it otherwise? But yeah, the Patriot League formally announcing that today, starting for 2026. Obviously, can't do it for this upcoming season. That would be too quick a turnaround. So it looks like the Patriot League's trying to do a little something. And I think Villanova is not a program that obviously gets a lot of football attention, but I've seen them here and there. So, I won't pretend to have a whole lot of knowledge about what this means in the big picture or even in the smaller picture, because I haven't kept tabs on this story much, but they seem excited about it. So good for Villanova and good for the Patriot League. And I'll try to be better about having a better understanding of what exactly this means in the long run. But I think you're just seeing a lot of these smaller conferences have shifts, people jumping from boat to boat to try to get the best situation possible and stay above water. And we've seen a lot of these, like, just kind of, I don't want to dismiss them as like by saying micro, but in comparison to the larger seismic moves we saw in realignment that we knew would eventually drill down into smaller reverberations as far as on the national radar. There's been a lot of those shock waves or those, tremors. And so this is just another one of what's felt like 100 of those over the last year, as everybody's seen the dust just continuously start to further settle and extend across the country. And so, the Patriot League, and we've seen obviously the big to-do out west with the Pac in the Mountain West battling it out over what's going to happen there. Even though we know the team's moving, we don't know how that's going to work with money and everything. So there's a lot of those moves that have been happening, and I'll have to just read up more on what exactly this means for Villanova. But good for them. Although I don't know how much of a splash to expect.
Yeah. Howie Long played football at Villanova. That's just my little Smoky moment there.
Yeah.
So
he did. I'd have a hard time coming up with too many other names, but Howie Long would be the first one, I think, for most people thinking about Villanova football. More of a basketball school, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe McGuire, whose signature is right there behind me. We've got to take some of the bias out of conferences. That is, this is a tougher conference because of this and this and this. Let's fight it out on the field on the college football playoff format. And as we've been saying, I'm not surprised that the Big 12 coaches are aligned with this, because this is their, and I get the automatic qualifier thing, but the coaches don't want to admit that, like, hey, we're not as good, because they don't believe that. Joe McGuire doesn't believe that his schedule is any less tough than anybody else's. I mean,
even if he did, he's not going to say that.
Yeah, but like, he's not. Well, he can't. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But like, I think
it depends on the schedule. It depends on what team you're talking about. Are we talking about Oklahoma's schedule last year? Then no, that's not built equal for everybody around the country. Are we talking about more of I don't think Texas had like an easy schedule per se, but in comparison to Oklahoma's, it certainly appeared that way. So there's differences just with those two rivals in the same conference, much less the other 14 teams that they're playing alongside, and then much less the dozens of others that are playing in various other leagues. So this whole, let's just slap a big label on it, and this insert conference is tougher across the board just because we said so, is complete nonsense, and only nonsensical people give that any attention anyways. But there is, I've said it multiple times, and look, the tribalism of Big 12 fans over the last few years has been amazing to see, because it was non-existent when I was growing up. It's cool in a way. It's also kind of not cool, because I didn't necessarily want the league to go the way of the SEC and like kind of pump each other up at all times. But it's been good to see there's at least some cohesion there, as opposed to when Texas and Oklahoma, it always felt like a bad household where people were constantly fighting and didn't respect each other and all that. It's been great to see the mutual respect around the league, outside of, a few people on Twitter here and there from Salt Lake City or, wherever that still complain about it. But I do think that there is too much of the tribalism influencing maybe some of the bigger talking points of, you get credit just because you're affiliated, not because of what you've actually done. So I do think we need to look at teams, not just where do they play. I think there's the where do they play is taking up way too much of the conversation sometimes, as opposed to, okay, how good are they exactly and what they've done. And so that's going back to the committee conversation, or the playoff is, do you get 5 points baked in because you just simply exist in the SEC, or, or in the Big Ten, or do you get negated because you played in the AC? Like, so there's got to be a way a computer can figure out where it's less about I just think there's too much being placed on what conference you play in. And so, if we can strip away some of that and just let it be the best teams, regardless of where they play, that's what I want to see. That's what I would hope most people would want to see. It's not about, well, I need to cram in BYU because I need the Big 12 to make another $20 million, and that way we all get another 2, and that way we get, like this whole, I understand that thought process, but man, that's not why we're fans. You know what I mean? We're not fans so that we're sitting there like, well, We need the Big 12 so that our NIL gets boosted. And it's like, man, we're too reliant on the league, the brand itself, I think, in some circles. And so I would like to get back to more of it's just like you hate everybody. And then when you need to, you come together as a brotherhood or as a group. But I don't think things should be predetermined, much like the automatic qualifiers. You know, obviously that was such a dust up. I do think there's way too much of that conference labeling going on and influencing people's opinions.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Just pick the best 16 teams, like have equal schedule metrics.
And dude, if 15 of them are from the SEC, then so be it. But don't do it because 6 guys in a room said it was so, and they ignored the fact that team's got 3 losses, but they're saying, oh, well, they played the tougher schedule because they're in this league. And then we get back to that. That's what I mean is like, yeah, just whoever the best 16 are. And look, if that means you get 1 in from your league, then so be it. But that's where the transparency also needs to come in so that you know it's not rigged ahead of time, especially in this day and age when people just assume everything is. But you make it as transparent as possible. So you go, no, you only got the 2 teams in because you only deserve to get the 2 teams in, not because of any influence from people or anything like that. It's just that's the way the numbers spit out. I would be okay with that. So, yeah, I'm with Joey in that we got to get away from – because I think, too, when you point out a team like Arizona State, like, oh, they're in the Big 12. Like, you just immediately disregard some of them because of the league they play in and because you have this preconceived notion about them or, you know, the propping up because you play in another league like the Big 10 and you're Indiana. You know, that's – I think we could do with less of that for sure. But realignment created that these last 2 or 3 years and really gassed that up to a significant degree. So maybe we'll start to get further away from that and it'll change a little bit for the better and less of the wide labeling conference stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. To a little bit of college baseball and softball now. The ECU's head coach, Cliff Goodwin. Our system is so broken. We have coaches at P4 schools texting our players directly who are not in the portal, and we have proof. All right.
Jeff Traylor and every other coach that said this exact same thing.
Okay,
I mean,
show us.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, show us or, I guess shut up about it. I don't know. I mean, I understand wanting to talk about it, and I don't know the situation, which, I mean, he's doing local radio here because that's a good place to sound off about something like that. Or is he – just venting out of nowhere. I don't know the context of it, but I mean, this is no different than what Jeff Traylor said. This is no different than what countless other football coaches have said. So I don't really have much of a different opinion on it than when they've all said it. It's like
part of it, I think, is this mutually assured destruction because if one of your coaches has done that unbeknownst to you, which I don't believe is unbeknownst, but let's just say for the benefit of this argument, it is. So the East Carolina coach gets up and is like, man, I'm sick of these people tampering. And his coaches have tampered, but not told him. Then he's like, all right, well, I'm gonna expose this coach from South Carolina that just texted our third baseman. And then they're like, I don't want to do that because there's a guy from Furman that's going to be really pissed.
Yeah, there's probably some of that. It's also, it's not the coach from South Carolina. It's like the uncle of the hitting coach at South Carolina or something like that. That's the one that's calling these guys. That's why remember when we had Traylor on last? He said you can't trace it to anybody really. You can't get anybody in trouble with the NCAA because they're all outside actors or outside influences through the family or through family of family or through high school friend or whatever. And so I don't know how to stop it. And I feel like those guys would be the ones to figure out how best to stop it. But this is an ongoing complaint we've heard in multiple sports now, football, basketball, baseball, and I'm sure everywhere else as well. And it's just the environment that they created. So name names, vent a little bit. Clearly he vented a little bit there. And I don't know what you do about it though. And I think everybody's probably got mostly the same reaction as me is like, that sucks, but nobody's doing anything about it. So sorry, that sucks, man. Yeah, I wish it was a better system than it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Najere Canaday told ESPN straight up, this is from our friend Brian Davis, love that Texas Tech pitcher Najere Canaday just straight up admits to ESPN that she was paid a $1 million+ in NIL money. Good for her, good for women's sports. Yeah, I wish more of this. We talk about it all the time. I wish more times we would just know so we know what the reality is of all this. We talked about the Oregon law yesterday that's going to shield them from some of those things. I think there needs to be more transparency in that, because I think part of the corruption in all of this is, me going, hey, I'm getting $3 million at TCU. And then they're like, oh, wow. All right. Well, if you want me, you got to beat $3 million. And then like, okay, well, you better beat 4, when TCU was only offering me, 1, right? Like those kind of things have to slow down. And to that end, was a really tight game last night. Texas comes through on what was supposed to be an intentional walk pitch, but I guess Najee Canada's body doesn't know how to do that because she just strikes so many people out. But game 2 coming up, and Texas Tech is down. But it was a nail biter, as most softball games do at this point in the year in the Women's College World Series wind up being.
Yeah, I don't know what tonight holds if Texas wins and takes the title, but that was a very dramatic game last night. Definitely a nail biter. And it was all the drama that you would want for a championship series. You want it to be a close game. You got a close game. And I think that it was just really unfortunate and still sort of unexplainable how that happened last night during the intentional walk for Canada to leave one right over the plate. And then Texas obviously played it smart and swung away and got the big hit and ended up winning that game as a result. And there was obviously a controversial call, or a moment earlier in that game, a rule that suddenly got more attention than it's ever gotten in the entire last 10 years of softball play. Probably Texas, had they lost that game last night, would certainly have a grievance as far as base runner interference and the whole to-do that happened there earlier in the game. So had Tech held on to win, that would have been the big complaint today was that ruling as far as the interference call went. But instead, Texas ends up winning on just a really weird moment in that game of trying to intentionally walk somebody and leaving it right there over the middle of the plate. I watched it 5 times just trying to figure out what happened, and I just think it was just a blunder, just a total blunder in a big moment. And man, I would have found it really tough to sleep last night as a result of that if I had some skin in the game. So just hate that for Tech fans. I mean, it was there for the taking, and it'd be one thing if you just threw it and then dink, somebody hits a 2-run bomb. Okay, but the way you lost that game, just brutal, absolutely brutal. And now Texas has just to win the one more, and they're the national champions. And Texas Tech's got to win tonight, obviously, to stay alive. So we'll see if they're able to do that. But I'd imagine that they're disappointed, but I would think rearing to go because they were in that sucker, man. They were just a few outs away from winning that bad boy last night, and just the unexplainable basically happened there. So kudos to Texas for the heads up play and overcoming the call earlier in the game that would have been pretty controversial. And it's just really unfortunate. If I'm looking at it from a Big 12 standpoint, this is another championship that we're playing for that we might fall short if they don't win tonight or don't win tomorrow. That would be pretty brutal pill to swallow because, man, it's fun to have teams playing for it, but at some point, what do we always say? You got to win them, man.
Yeah.
You want better TV deals? Win national championships. You want better broadcast times? Win national championships. You want more money? Win national championships. Just getting there gets you a little bit of that, but it doesn't get you the whole pie, and it doesn't give you the big propaganda graphic from Greg Sankey pointing out all the championships that they won and why they deserve more money. It doesn't look the same when you're going runner-up in basketball and runner-up in softball and runner-up in, and so that's a door they have yet to really break through all of the way across the board, the way that's really needed right now. But they still have a chance tonight to keep this thing going. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully it's as entertaining and dramatic of a game as we saw last night. So yeah, sorry for the Tech fans out there, and I know for Texas fans that was a fun win.
Just one more thing. We'll skip that Michelle Beadle and Stephen A. Smith thing. But
and on the Najee Kennedy, I find it kind of weird coming from the Texas guy in the midst of this, because at first when I saw that, I was like, why is he pointing that out? Texas doesn't pay people. You know what I mean?
No, I think look, we know Brian pretty well.
No, I know, but that's typically the response. And that's what a lot of what I was seeing about Texas Tech was, that $1 million pitcher, the $1 million pitcher, the $1 million pitcher, as though it was a negative. And just the lack of self-awareness by most of the people saying that just, I guess, isn't surprising these days anymore. But I at first took that as almost a defensive thing. But yeah, I admire, like he said, the refreshing openness of just saying, like, yeah, I've made $1 million+ and this is what it looked like. And so what? And we all move on and we all know, and that's cool. And it's on to the next thing, rather than the shrouds of secrecy that football wants to stay wrapped under, no matter what they have to do to do that. I just find the need for secrecy kind of weird. Not that we're all looking to, I don't need to see your W-2s on every athlete. Not as for that. Not even really necessarily wanting to know everybody's, but like, hey, if it's out there, just put it out there, and what's the big deal about it? You know, kind of thing. So yeah, I admire that. Like to know, I admire that candor.
I think we all like. I just want to know like what we're really like. Just factually, what when you hear these things like Texas got a $40 million roster,
right? And they cry foul, and they're like, "That's completely irresponsible reporting." Okay, then what is it?
Okay, what is it? Yeah. Like just tell us, because now somebody else is going to try to get a $45 million roster and a $50 million. Like, accuracy would help this thing. Like,
yeah, it almost feels like you're not saying, because you don't want everybody to start spending more than they're already spending, because you are spending so much money. But you want to act like you're not, because you want to act like you're in line with everybody else. And then if you blow the top off that and you are spending $10 million more than everybody else, well, then your secret's blown, and now they're going to start spending $10 million, or you're ridiculed for it or whatever. So, yeah, I like that not everybody's still trying to keep that under wraps and just going, yeah, I made $1 million+. It's out there. So what? She's a badass. So good for her.
Yeah, she is. But we'll talk, I'm sure, a little bit more about this in Off the Radar. But I just want to say it. Our long national nightmare is over. Aaron Rodgers has emerged from a yurt, a cocoon, a cave, and he is going to ink a 1-year contract with the Steelers before next week's minicamp. So no more sleepless nights, folks.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess for the Aaron Rodgers fanatics out there, whoever that may be, big day for them. Totally getting lost in the news cycle, though.
Yeah.
Totally, with what's going on right now. It's just totally not even near being the top headline in the world right now.
It is pretty ironic considering what he got in trouble for on the Pat McAfee show.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, this was a story that was just dragging out, and it felt like this was always the logical conclusion. The signs appeared to be there that he was going to continue playing, and really the only spot that made any sense at this point was Pittsburgh. So good for him. Hopefully he can make it more than he did in his Jets debut. Hopefully this isn't the big buildup, and then like game one, it's like the big tunnel run, and then but I don't know what he's still got at this point, man. I don't really find him entertaining outside of football. I'm not somebody that's appointment television for him and McAfee every week, even though I enjoy, parts of McAfee's show. I don't know, man. I'm not anti Aaron Rodgers either. I'm just kind of whatever with him. So this is a big deal for some people. If he had retired, I would have been like, that's fine too. He's a really good player. I don't know how good he still is, but he will make Pittsburgh a much more interesting team, at least initially, as a result of this decision. I'm glad that NFL reporters can now move on to, the more probably not as socially popular type of post, that it's going to be the kind of more mundane training camp stuff from here on out, but at least we can start the countdown to football. And this is one of those things that's just kind of the sideshow and out of the way now.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Christy Dosh from Forbes Sports Business. She has written a new book, The Athlete's NIL Playbook. We'll talk to her. This is 365 Sports.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist's office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Right now at Berg Colgan Ford, we're bringing you an offer that's as big as America. Employee pricing for everyone. You pay what they pay. That means you drive home a new Ford F-150, Bronco Sport, Expedition, Super Duty. From America, for America. Employee pricing for everyone at BK Ford. Looking to sell your vehicle? Get top dollar for yours today. Don't miss out. Employee pricing is available for a limited time. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Experience better at BK Ford.
I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Christy Dosh, who covers sports business for Forbes. She's the founder, Business of College Sports, and adjunct professor at the University of Florida, a recovering attorney and author of the Athletes NIL Playbook, which is releasing soon. Christy, thanks so much for being on the show. There are not, because it is a new era, there's probably not much competition in the market or somebody who's written as in-depth a work as you have. Did you see, because of your job, because of teaching and all that, the gap in the space for something for athletes so they can pick something up and learn just basics of what they should do?
Yeah, when I heard NIL was coming, starting with California's law in 2019, I spent a lot of 2020 before NIL was even going to go into effect, sort of thinking about how the landscape was going to change and how I wanted to be a part of it, because I have a really entrepreneurial spirit, and I knew that athletes were now going to have the opportunity to pursue a lot of the things that I had done around writing books and monetizing my blog and getting paid to speak and going on podcasts and all these things I had already done, and just really wanted to help be a part of that and to help athletes figure out how to navigate that. Because at their age, I definitely not only didn't know how to do that, I didn't even really have the drive for it at that age. And so I'm really impressed by the number of athletes who have embraced this and have set themselves up for success that's going to take them far beyond their sport and beyond graduation, which I love seeing.
What do you feel after you've written all this is still something that's missing for the athletes to be able to take advantage of, or that they need to protect them?
It's still just education. Athletic departments at the collegiate level offer some level of education that varies a lot from school to school, and you really don't see much of it at all when you get outside of the Power Four, and certainly not when you get outside of Division I. So Division 2 and 3 student athletes don't get much of that, and some of them are doing really well because they've got great natural instincts, or they've got parents who are helping guide them who have experiences in some of these places. But the high school level and below, there is no education. There's nothing for the athletes. There's nothing for the parents. And so sort of the biggest surprise for me as we've moved through the last 4 years of having NIL is the number of emails I get from the parents of high school athletes because they don't know where to go. And I show up in Google searches when you start Googling NIL. So I think they find me that way. And it has led to me creating a big Facebook group specifically for parents where we can talk about NIL, and I can give some training and education, and then eventually led me to write a book as well, because I just want to get more education sooner in the process, because there are a lot of high school athletes who are looking to go ahead and get started before they even get to college. And even I've got a very successful 12-year-old in my Facebook group, so not even high school age yet.
Wow, 12 years. Well, and Christy, the timing, I mean, there's various states that are passing laws, and I think Texas is now getting into that mix where high school athletes will be able to profit off of NIL at that level. What are your thoughts, especially given you just said there's a lot of lack of education out there, and now you're about to just throw on to people like, hey, now your high school kid can start making this money before they even get to college. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, what are the upsides? Obviously the money, but obviously there's downsides that can come with that as well if we don't execute this properly.
Yeah, there are definitely some concerns when we're talking about athletes that are under 18. They're not able to sign their own contracts. Their parents are signing their contracts for them. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's bad. That's on kind of a case by case basis. But, for example, one thing I wrote about in the book and that I sort of learned was there was a story of a couple of professional athletes who, when they had been teenagers and were excelling in their sport, and I think one of them was European and so had not been subject to NIL rules here, and another one was in a sport outside of the NCAA pipeline, and their parents had signed these contracts on their behalf. And one of them, the parent owned trademarks for the athlete's name. He's now grown and is an NBA player, and he doesn't even own his own name. His mother owns it, and she's actually been preventing him from some of the monetization he's wanted to do. So not that every parent out there would be like that, but there are some issues at that level, because you're talking about, I said a 12-year-old is doing deals. We've got 15, 16, 17-year-olds doing deals. And even if they're not being taken advantage of, they don't necessarily always understand what they're agreeing to do. I don't think that means they shouldn't be able to do it, but I do think it means we need more education at that level.
It's like child actors.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
it's very similar.
Yeah. Like when you described that, it sounded very much to me like the so many sad stories we see of the child actors that got taken advantage of by bad parents. What regulation, if any, do you feel needs to be made in the NIL space?
Number one for me, this is my soapbox, is agents have to be certified. I think the NCAA should have some sort of certification process. All the major professional leagues have it. And for that reason, only about half of the states have any sort of athlete agent laws or certification registration processes, because they've largely relied on the pro leagues to do it. And when I was in law school in the early aughts, I interned at the WTA Tour, and I helped write the first agent code there, because most of their athletes were represented by their parents. And sorry to all the parents out there, but there are some parents out there who probably shouldn't be acting as agents for their children, and it had become a problem. And so they were going to start certifying agents within their league. And the NCAA, as far as they've gone, is to have a voluntary registration. There are so many people out there claiming to be NIL agents, because any of us could walk out our front door right now and say, you know what, I'm an NIL agent. You don't have to have any, sort of background. You don't have to pass any kind of test, no sort of experience. So if athletes don't know the right questions to ask before they hire these agents, some of them are ending up in really bad situations.
We were just talking before you came on about Najee Canaday and her $1 million payday from Texas Tech. She was very candid. She even said the exact amount when interviewed on ESPN last night. A lot of that is not out there. Is there a middle ground where athletes don't have to share everything that they're making, but we can know what these budgets are like, so that there's maybe a little more transparency, and the rumor mill can maybe slow down a little bit?
It's tough, because on the one hand, it would actually be beneficial for athletes to know what other athletes are making, because it would make them more knowledgeable when they're negotiating, and I think would allow some of them to be getting higher dollar amounts if they understood what their teammates and what their peers at other schools were getting. So I like transparency for that reason. But on the other hand, We don't require it anywhere else. We don't require it of professional athletes. We don't require it of YouTube influencers who aren't athletes. So why do student athletes have to disclose that? So I understand why people have been against disclosure for that reason. As far as knowing sort of where everybody's playing, at least with revenue sharing, everybody will have a limit on the revenue sharing side. So we'll know what the maximum is there. But we know that many of them are going to go above and beyond that with what they're able to do with NIL deals outside of revenue sharing. And there really is no way to make that more transparent or to curb that unless we were to go to some sort of cap, which isn't going to happen unless athletes are employees and are collectively bargaining, because everybody points to the pro leagues and says, look, they have a cap. Well, they have a cap on salaries, not on endorsement and sponsorship income, and they collectively bargain for it. So really different situation.
What do you think? Oregon just passed a law that will allow for some shielding there. Texas actually just signed a bill into law about kind of similar in that schools can directly pay athletes. So that paves the way for a CBA if it should happen. What do you think about the laws that have been written, and why not use that as sort of a guide for a CBA?
Yeah, I think the biggest impediment to there being a CBA is just the impediments to athletes becoming employees, that there are still, I would say most people within the NCAA and within the member schools don't want athletes to be employees. There's some exceptions. We've heard some coaches and even some athletic directors come out who seem to be moving to that side. And, I've even heard arguments that everybody would sort of, not only would the athletes be better off, but, athletic departments would be in a better position, because right now it's sort of all over the place. And then at least we would have structure and, maybe better competitive balance. But there's a lot that changes about college athletics if some or all of the athletes become employees. And when I talk to athletes, not all of them want to be employees when they find out exactly how that would work and how they might be, let go from teams and not necessarily having scholarships or not having them honored. If they were to move to true employment status, their student athlete experience might look really different in some good ways and some bad ways. I still think it's probably coming, though. And I'm not somebody who's necessarily advocated for it over the years, but when I try to look at it objectively, I think that's where this is headed, because there is no other way to rein this in that is legal. So I think that's where we're headed.
Is there a carve out that would maybe make a college athlete CBA different than, say, a professional CBA, or does it need to be more black and white?
Yeah, there's not, in the sense. I just was at a big conference with other lawyers, and we were all sort of discussing this. There is no such thing as collective bargaining without them being employees. That doesn't mean Congress couldn't pass something saying collective bargaining would be allowed without athletes being employees. That would actually be a really good middle ground, to allow collective bargaining without athletes actually becoming employees. That does not fit inside our current legal framework, and I don't really see Congress getting involved. They have plenty of other things to worry about. I don't think this is top of their priority list, so I don't see that coming. But certainly athletes have a bigger voice now and are getting a seat at the table in ways in which 5 years ago, 10 years, 15 years ago, they didn't get. I think more and more they're being invited into rooms, asked to sit on committees, asked to come and speak before Congress. And we have seen some big shifts. I mean, when I first started reporting on college athletics, that was like 15 years ago. And that was when we were having the debate on whether they could have cream cheese on their bagels. So we've come a long way.
Yeah. That was one of the things I always wondered about that. Like, were there recruits that went like, listen, I didn't go to Boston College because no cream cheese. And then, I went to Notre Dame because they had two different flavors. Like, that's kind of the dumb thing about it. So, let's talk specifically about the book. When's the release date? People can pre-order now. You can go to wherever you get books and get it. And what's your pitch specifically to the parent, especially of an athlete or an athlete who needs to read this book?
Yeah, so it's called The Athletes NIL Playbook. The original publication date was July 2nd, but actually the books got to my publisher early, and they asked if I wanted to go ahead and release them. And I said, yes, the sooner the better. So they've released them, and I saw today that Amazon updated the release date to June 10th, which means they're going to start shipping next week. So it still says pre-order, but it is going to leave next week. I think Barnes & Noble and the rest will follow suit, and people will get it before that original July 2nd release date. And it covers like from the ground level, like what is NIL? What are all the different ways you can monetize, beyond just social media marketing and some of the stuff we see in the news? What are all the different ways? And then examples of athletes from all three divisions in a variety of sports, a lot of athletes you've never heard of before, but who are killing it with NIL, so that you can see this really is something that is for any athlete who wants to participate in it. There are opportunities, and it walks you through what questions do you ask before you hire an agent? How do you price yourself? Where do you find these deals? What do you say when you reach out to a brand? It really is, I think, everything you need to know to get started and to maximize those NIL opportunities.
Christy, best of luck with the book. It's again, it's a look. There's nothing else like it right now, and so it's one of those things that it's probably a need for a lot of people who, again, there's never been a manual about this. It's very new. So congratulations on the book. I've never written one. But I know, and part of the reason I never have is because it's super hard to do that. So congratulations. This is your second or third book?
This is my second nonfiction, and then I write fiction as well.
Okay. Well, what's harder?
They are hard in very different ways. Nonfiction takes longer because there's a lot of interviews, a lot of gathering data. You've got to have your facts straight. Whereas with fiction, I can just make stuff up and nobody knows any better.
Well, Christy, again, congratulations. Thanks for hopping on. And thanks for being a trooper. I know you had to have a rough trip to the dentist today. So thank you so much.
I did. Thanks. This was a lot more fun than that was.
Yeah. Thank you, Christy. Christy Dosh, again, she's on Twitter at SportsBizMiss. And you can get the book wherever fine books are sold. Next up, we've got Scott Docterman of The Athletic. He's going to jump on and talk about the genesis of the Big Ten's AQ plan. This is 365 Sports.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and our good friend Scott Docterman of The Athletic. And Scott, really, really interesting work on the genesis of the AQ plan from the Big Ten. A lot of times we don't know like how these things get put together. I've always been kind of a 5+11 guy, just because I just don't like the idea of what could happen in an AQ format, but the Big Ten does have some reasons for this. What was the most surprising for you as you got into why the 4-4-2-2-2-1, whatever it is? I'm probably lost in the math there a little bit.
Well, first, thanks for having me on. And I would say this, that hopefully at some point we get a new name for that, because math's not my strong point either, but, other than counting yards and points and that. But I think I wouldn't say it surprised me, but when I went through the math as to how these leagues are constituted now and what would have happened if under that automatic qualifier system the Big Ten has proposed, and the SEC has as well, just as talking themselves out of it, versus a straight top 16 goes along the champions go, is that it actually would cost the Big Ten a couple of spots, and the Big 12 would be the beneficiary of this based over the last few years, because last year the Big 12 would not have gotten another team in. It would have been left out. It only would have had one under a 5-11 format. It would have had two, of course, if it had two protected ones. And so I think in some ways that is part of why I think it's not the worst idea in the world. When you do look, the Big Ten would have had at least 4, if not 5 teams every year. The SEC, the first 2 years would have only had 3, which kind of surprised me. And then the last few years would have picked that up. But overall, I think the math has been kind of interesting to me, because even though it just sounds almost highbrow and arrogant to say we deserve 4, that's really not the intent. The intent the Big Ten kind of shared, people in the Big Ten have shared with me, is that they feel like if they don't have this type of qualifier format, and you have the Big Ten and Big 12 with 9 regular season games, you have the SEC and ACC with 8, that it's just so different when you're comparing one another to get all the way into 16, that it'll just be a race to the bottom when it comes to scheduling, and teams will say, you know what, instead of playing that crossover game against a Big 12 team or an SEC team, we're just going to play an FCS team or a group of 5, and that way our 10-2 gives us a better chance than a 9-3, no matter who the opponent is. So I think there's a lot of nuance to it. It's not as cut and dried. It's not as again, Big Ten's evil, Big Ten's arrogant as it is just kind of almost a rational plan to kind of divide college football, because everybody's so different.
So how surprised were they last week when Commissioner Greg Sankey gets up and just starts talking to folks last week and starts going, well, maybe we are going to look at this other thing? And because in talking to people yesterday, it seemed like this was pretty much like a done deal, right? And then last week occurred, and it seems like they kind of flipped everything on its head.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I haven't been to Destin, but I know about it when it happens every spring, and it's kind of a circus, if you will. It's kind of like the SEC Media Days, just a little different as far as the access to people. And so AD started talking, Sankey talked every day and kind of started flexing a little bit. And that was a little unusual considering, they're not doing it from a position of strength right this very minute. I mean, the Big Ten has won the last 2 national titles. The SEC was 1-5 against the Big Ten in postseason competition. So, and again, they're going over an 8-game schedule versus a 9. So the Big Ten people were very much surprised. They thought that they were kind of in lockstep, that there were things to iron out, but they felt like they were in it kind of together, and now they don't know. And, one AD that I talked to yesterday, from around the Big Ten was like, well, the thing is, we're not going to settle this week or next week. It's going to take a couple months. So we'll everybody have patience. We'll kind of take a step back, and then we'll talk about it and work things out. So but this is what happens this time of year. When somebody gets arrested or some plan happens like this, or there's expansion or realignment, it gets moved to the forefront really quick in the public's eye.
Scott, do you think that they can, they would be wildly successful in a 5-11 model, and they could live with it, right? Like, would it be something that they would do, but would they fight it like all along the way and waiting for that moment to happen where maybe they and the SEC both got screwed at the same time, and they could say, see, we told you that, this could end up with both of us having less than 4?
I think that they would do that if the SEC plays 9 games, and if there's some sort of an agreement where they would play try to play 10 power conference opponents. That's not an issue for the Big 10 or Big 12. Almost every school plays 10 power conference teams, and they play 9 within their conference. So those teams are kind of on a similar plane when you look at it that way. But some of the numbers that are really kind of almost crazy as you think about it, over the last 5 years, 66 Big 10 teams have played at least 10 Power 5 opponents, Power 4, whatever, Power Conference. Only 12 played less than that. In the SEC, it's almost completely reversed. Only 11 teams over the last 5 years played at least 10 Power 5 conference teams. And when you look back at the history and why there's some PTSD on the Big Ten's side is that you look back at Ohio State in 17 and 18, and they played 9 league games. They went to Iowa and got murdered. They went to Penn State and got throttled. Purdue, I should say, and got throttled. And if they were playing an 8-game schedule, they wouldn't play that cross-division game. That might have been a game that they put off in a different year, and instead they're filling their schedule up with directional Michigan school, and maybe they're 11-1, maybe they're 12-0, and they get in the playoffs. But instead, the extra game costs them. Where you look at, again, at the SEC, that, and you guys know this too from the Big 12. You go anywhere in mid-November. And within your league, you can go to Iowa State. Found out that with Kansas last year. You risk a lot playing league competition at that time of year, and if you've got that mid-December or mid-November layup, it really helps you out. And then all of a sudden you're going, well, they're 10-2 and you're 9-3, and it's like, but our 9-3 is different than their 10-2. But it's never really worked out in the Big Ten's favor. So I think that's kind of why if everybody's gonna have different standards, then each conference should figure out what their number is, as opposed to a committee which changes every year or two and sees things differently.
I don't remember the printouts Greg Sankey gave out last week, but I don't think those numbers that you just put on were on there. I don't think those were on there because those are very interesting numbers. When it comes to the ACC and as you mentioned, the Big 12 there, they have more say than a lot of their counterparts, not named the Big 10 and the SEC. They have a voice at the table, so to speak. But how much do you think that voice really factors in and matters in the big picture? Or is it just Sankey and Petiti are going to do what they want no matter what? How much is that? Are those other voices valued, do you feel like?
They're very much valued. They don't get final say, which is the way the world has changed, and that's a little unfortunate. But one of the things that I think both Sankey and Petiti believe and have said at different times is, look, we have a responsibility to the sport to make it right, and we can't just do something that's just for the good of the Big Ten or just for the good for the SEC. Yes, we want to have every advantage we can have, but you've got to be responsible to the sport. And I think in some ways this is probably where there is some inequality among the leagues, and that's unfortunate. And if the four auto bids for both the Big Ten and SEC goes through, if I'm Jim Phillips, with the ACC, if I'm Brett Yermark with the Big 12, maybe you get together and say, look, let's push for 5 automatic bids combined, 2 for each of the conferences, and then the next team. So that way you're guaranteed a pretty good number out of the mix because, granted they've lost some really good teams over the time, but if you can get 5 in every year, and either in the big combined with the Big 12 and ACC, then you've got a fighter's chance, and hopefully that would be my push, or what I think could happen that could really end some of the stalemate here.
Were you surprised that they didn't just go along with the 2 guaranteed? I know it's a matter of perception, like that's the driving forces. They don't want to be relegated publicly, which is basically what that would do. But do you think anybody was surprised that they weren't like, well, 2 is guaranteed, like we wouldn't have had that last year, so yeah, let's go for it? Or was that kind of expected, do you think?
I think they're going to publicly go against this as long as they can because of perception, as you said. I mean, like the ACC is pretty much, on that 4-year stretch, they would have gotten 2 every year but 1. They would have gotten 3 last year, with Miami being the 3rd. So they're pretty much in that category. They would have gotten 2 guaranteed and then 1 at large last year. The Big 12 would have been a little more volatile, and some of it's hard to compare with old Pac-12 teams and Cincinnati going to the playoff one year, but they would have been, 1 year would have been 3 or 4, and but the last 2 years it would have been only 1. So I think it's a guarantee. I think it's something that they could probably put in their pocket and just say, well, how much more could we push to make sure we get this right? And I think but you've got to be cautious because, talking from the Big 12 perspective is, can your 10-2 team then be, outrank a 9-3 team from the Big 10 or or the SEC when they're playing those teams, and you want to make sure that you get at least 2 every year. You get your champion, and then you're probably, last year after Iowa State's loss, it probably would have been BYU that would have been the second team. In fact, it was ranked a little higher, but you've got to make sure you get 2 in. So I would hold the line for a little while, see if you can get anything else, but then cut bait and say, hey, as long as we can get 2 in every year, we feel pretty good about this.
Scott, do you sense a mistrust of the committee like the SEC clearly has now? Because that was some of their rhetoric. But the Big Ten in this format would really kind of probably want the committee, wouldn't they?
The Big Ten, the problem that they've had with the committee, of all things, it happened over a bowl game that really spelled it out. And this was, going back to 10 years ago, Jim Delaney laid out a plan where that's when they boosted from 8 to 9 games in the conference season. A championship game, 1 non-conference major opponent, and then no FCS opponents. That's the rules that he had put through, and that's what he wanted his teams to do. Well, I think it was in 2018, Penn State had a 9-3 record, as did Florida, but Florida played 2 FCS opponents. They played Colorado State, was like 3-9, and then Florida State, like they always do, and it was 5-7. They'd only beaten like 2 ranked opponents, and lost a couple other games decisively. I think 3 games by 20+ points. Penn State played the ACC Coastal Division champion. They played an 11-2 App State. They also played a 9-game league schedule with Michigan and Ohio State. I mean, 2 teams ranked in the top 5, and they were still ranked behind Florida. And so at that point, that's when Delaney just threw everything out. He was pretty upset. He just said, look, any criteria we have is secondary to the eye test at this point, and because they're playing 8 league games, we're playing 9, we're playing all these other teams. So I think the Big Ten would rather have it outside the purview of the committee. I mean, last year you take Illinois. I mean, Illinois was not a great team in the regular season, but you look at who they lost to. They lost to Oregon, Penn State, and then an 8-win Minnesota team, and then went and beat South Carolina in a bowl game. And you think about it, it's like they weren't even discussed. But if they're beating South Carolina, who was heavily upset that they didn't make the playoff, I think they'd rather be able to ensure it themselves, which is why they're really wanting, and they're going to do, no matter what, that plan where they have a 3-6, 4-5 game to go along with their championship on championship weekend.
Do you think that the Big Ten would be amenable to I talked about it earlier, because the SoCon came out today and said it needs to be more metric based and that the committee needs to be less involved, and we probably don't need to go all metrics and no committee, but would they be open to how they pick the hockey, which is both? Like, the committee can only consider teams that hit these certain metrics and have this certain RPI.
From what I was told, that they'd be willing to do they would be willing to look at the numbers, but then they're also like, look, we don't have as many data points as there is in basketball or other sports. You have 31 games roughly in college basketball, and there's some crossover. But now, you're basically talking about the law of transitive property. When you're talking about comparing teams in football, it's like I have a 9-3 team, you have a 9-3 team. Both of them lost all 3 games in conference play. Whose conference is better? Who played who? And then you're trying to say, well, we beat this team, which beat that team, which beat their team, and it really is hard to determine, and it all depends on each week, because we're talking college football, we're talking about young men out there, and some days they look really good, and other days they don't look as good, and who knows why. But so that's why they would rather, with 18 teams in the Big Ten, 16 in the Big 12, 16 in the SEC, and 17 in the ACC, they would rather just, this is the Big Ten's preference, is, hey, if we're going to get 4 spots no matter what the field looks like. We'd rather determine them for ourselves, because like one person said inside, he goes, Indiana was 8-1 last year. They played both the contestants for the championship game the year before. Then they played the other 2 last year, but we didn't know if they were better really than Illinois, even because of some of the other games they played. And so that's why they feel like the Big Ten does, that they would rather have it to where they determine who the 4 were. And then if somebody loses, then they can go to the at-large pool. And if they get in, they do. If they don't, too bad.
I also realized last week, after Greg Sankey spoke so much, that I don't know what Tony Petitti's voice sounds like. I have no idea what it sounds like. Honestly, like, he could be British for all I know. Like, seriously, I remember seeing Gary Oldman on David Letterman one time, like way back in the day, and then he was British, and I realized I'd seen so many Gary Oldman movies where he never had the same accent. I didn't know where he was from. This is kind of the exact opposite. Why is Tony Petitti so, I don't want to say afraid. I mean, but why is his
calculated?
Calculated, yeah. Why is the strategy to not say anything, especially when this is your plan?
Exactly. That is their fault. And that's something that I've discussed with them. And his preference is, we'd rather just continue to work behind the scenes, not really, do this publicly. But, I'm like, look, everybody else is taking the narrative right now. You're losing. You're looking like the big, bad, arrogant Big Ten, that has this evil plan to guarantee spots, and they're not. And you need to come out and talk about it. And they're just like, well, right now, this is our preference to do it this way. And I don't understand that philosophy. I think you'd want to be out there kind of beating your chest saying, hey, we won the last 2 championships. We won some pretty significant bowl games. This plan is equitable for everybody. And again, use the figures that I gave you about the Big 12 or some of the other leagues, and say, look, the SEC still would have gotten 6 teams in last year. I mean, they still would have gotten Bama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina in. There's really no detriment to this plan. It's just a matter of how we proportion it. But I'm not the mouthpiece of the Big Ten, even though I sound like it right now. And I'm just trying to explain their perspective. But they got to come out and start talking, because, they had a position of strength a couple of months ago. Now it's starting to look like a position of weakness. Yeah,
I mean, it's just like if you walked in and said, whose plan is this? And they're like, somebody's. Yeah. Like that's what it's like. It looks your handwriting. Like, I don't know about that. Like it's so weird to me that they're not, especially considering that everyone else is speaking out against them right now. Like they've not defensed it at all. And obviously their beef on the 9 games is with the SEC. Is it also with why does nobody, you brought up the ACC. We always bring up the ACC. Why does no one ever bring up that they're in this too with the 8 games? And if there's the conference that could use another marquee game on their television schedule, it is definitely the ACC.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's weird. They've kind of slid under the radar because a lot of them, I think 4 of them play against that crossover game against the SEC late in the year. And they haven't been, frankly, good enough for it to really enter that conversation. And if they did, then, I mean, Florida State does, Clemson does. They've had, history there. But Virginia Tech has been down for a long time. And, some other teams that you think might be good. Miami, it's been kind of the offseason champion for a while. And, you're kind of waiting for them to kind of rise to the forefront. And then, but I'll say this too, that most of them do play. I think all but like 4 do play 10 power conference teams. So if they're not playing each other, they're only playing 8 times, but they are playing power conference teams. It's just, probably the point that the Big Ten really raised with me multiple times. And it said, look, this gives us an opportunity to play meaningful non-conference games, whereas at a 5-11 it wouldn't as much, because what teams will see, and this is what will happen if everybody stays status quo and the SEC says, well, we're not gonna add another game. Why would we want to do that? We're the toughest conference in the country, blah, blah, blah. Then the Big Ten's going to say, well, why are we going to play a meaningful non-conference game when it only hurts us because we play 9 Big Ten games? So we're going to start again eliminating that. USC is going to say we're not going to play Notre Dame anymore. We're going to play Cal Poly or something like that. And then you start, Iowa says, well, you know what? We've got 9 league games. We're going to play Northern Iowa instead of Iowa State. And that's the trickle-down effect that they want to avoid, because if the Big Ten has 4 spots, if the SEC has 4 spots, then it doesn't matter if Iowa plays Iowa State and loses. It's like, well, you're competing with the Big Ten for those spots, not across the board. And it's kind of a race to the bottom is how one person described it to me.
Scott, where are you doing this interview from?
I'm at a coffee shop in North Liberty, Iowa.
Oh, I thought you might be at like a ballpark because I heard the music in the background. I thought, oh, maybe he's out covering a ball game, and he was nice enough to turn the computer on for us. But thank you anyway. Thanks always, Scott, for jumping on. It was a great piece. It was very educational, and we needed somebody like you to write that because, like I said before, the Big Ten hasn't told us why they came up with the plan.
Well, thank you for that. And yes, I kind of noticed that after last week. I'm like, everybody's jumping on kind of the SEC bandwagon on this, and it's like, well, I have some information and some people have told me this stuff. Let's just, and I pressed them. I even pressed them. They said, you guys want to go on the record for this? And no, that was not the case. So, but I felt like it was important to get this point of view out there because, again, it's not just the big bad ogres from Yankee land deciding to do something,
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
Scott Docterman of The Athletic. And yeah, I mean, this is the first thing I've read that explains their thinking on it, other than just 4-4, 2-2, whatever it is, for the AQs. So that was really interesting from Scott. Coming up, we've got Micah Butel, College Baseball Central, and it just means less ACC. We'll start talking about the ACC's perspective on the playoff, and then we'll talk college baseball with him. Then Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, and John Machota, the Ohio State schedule. My top 5, that's all coming up. This is 365 Sports.
I went by Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco earlier this week to get myself a big old stack of cigars. Rocky Patel, Monte Cristo, Romeo and Julieta, Ashton, Macanudo, Cohiba, Padron. They have a 48-foot walk-in humidor, and I'm taking a bunch of those cigars to Florida to spend the next few days with my brothers, Michael and Philip, and just get the beautiful views off that 17th floor, unbelievable balcony that's a panoramic view. Just sitting there reminiscing and talking about life. By the way, coming up on June the 12th, both Cheyenne and Joshua at Don Humidor and Coffee Beans, the Lone Star Cut and Light event from 5 until 8 that day at Don Humidor with the taco truck, Bear Arms Brewery, reps from McAuliffe, Mayfin, and Roma Craft there to tell you about their cigars and maybe even let you test one. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills and Richland Drive in Waco.
Allen Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Allen Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Micah Butel, College Baseball Central. Also, It Just Means Less ACC podcast, a really fun podcast about the ACC. Micah, we're going to talk college baseball for the majority of this interview, but I wanted to start out because you are very prominently, talking about the ACC all the time when it comes to other sports, and particularly football. And we are, we're football first. I mean, there's not, you see behind me, there's helmets and all. Your thoughts on the ACC and the future of the college football playoff? They and the Big 12 seem aligned on this 5+11, which now the SEC thinks is the best idea. What are your thoughts? Is the ACC taking the calculated risk, or how do you feel about this?
I'm kind of indifferent on it. 'Cause at the end of the day, I'm not a big 16 team kind of like in that kind of spot situation. But at the end of the day, I think that if you're the ACC, you're smart. You got to guarantee your spots. I mean, fair or not. I mean, as much as I want to think the ACC is not as far behind as the SEC, or to the SEC and the Big Ten, is some of the, I guess, national folks, or even just the perspective on, the internet would say is, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to play your cards right. So from the ACC standpoint, I mean, I don't hate that model. I think it guarantees you something. And in many years, I don't think the ACC is getting, too butthurt about teams being left out that maybe shouldn't have been. Because I do think at the end of the day, the ACC is still going to have 2 or 3 in that conversation every time. And I mean, call it what it is. I mean, there's a lot of talent. Obviously, it's being seen every year in the draft coming from the SEC and the Big Ten. So I don't think it's unfair as well to say that the SEC and the Big Ten might deserve a couple more spots in terms of just allowing it to be a free-for-all from those last 11 spots. So I'm a little sad from the mid-major standpoint, as someone that is obsessed with the FCS playoffs. I would like to see more for the group of 5, but I also understand in the world where the FBS model is way more about money than the FCS model is, why this route would be taken.
Yeah, I think from everybody else's perspective, look, for the Big 12, we talked about it here a lot. From the ACC, I know that you're sacrificing those guaranteed spots, and there's going to be years where both the Big 12 and the ACC may just get the champion in. That may happen. But I don't think that you can allow you just can't admit that you're publicly say we're second class. We've got middle seats. We don't get hot towels. We're fine with that. I don't think you can say that and then try and grow your conference. It's a risk. It's a big one. It might not work out the way they want it to, but I think that it's what they have to do, even though it's probably the one that, you're going to see the champion and then the 3 champions from the other leagues, and then the 13 teams are going to be from the Big Ten and SEC. That may happen, but at least when it does, they won't really have any place to run and hide on some of the egregious things that happen when those teams get skipped over. Like if a 10-2 Florida State that didn't play in the ACC championship game gets skipped over, or a 9-3 Duke gets skipped over by an 8-4 Mississippi State, like what are we doing? Like those things I think will be more exposed in that kind of 5+11 format.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And as someone who's a University of Virginia football fan, I'll never forget someone did one of the proposed models where, you know, obviously the two, like they basically got rid of the conference championship games and made the two teams from each conference play. Well, I remember when Virginia played in the ACC championship game and lost by like 50 something to Clemson. As much as I would love to say that Virginia made the college football playoff that year, I don't think the 9-5 Virginia Cavaliers deserved a spot. So I think at the end of the day, right, like if you're the ACC, I mean, yeah, you obviously don't want to, you know, you'd like to have more guaranteed spots, but I agree with you. You have to A, not be willing to admit you're second class, but B, be able to prove that you're not second class. I mean, at the end of the day, like, you know, again, I would raise hell if it's a 10-2 Florida State team left out, but you know, if it's an 8-4 Duke team per se, or even an 8-4 Florida State, like probably don't deserve to be in an 8-4. Unless your schedule itself is great, because that's the nice thing about football is, you know, you can kind of tailor your schedule a little bit more to be stronger than, you know, but maybe by not scheduling FCS teams or whatever route they choose to go to.
Yeah. All right, Micah, you are one of the most prolific college baseball writers out there. Really enjoyed your stuff. College Baseball Central, you've gone to a ton of ballparks this year. You have seen a lot of these teams, not only just by following them forever, you've seen them in person. We are now to the super regionals. Which do you think is the best super regional as far as the most drama, and which one do you think is this one, rubber stamp it, it's over?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best super regional comes down to either Florida State, Oregon State, or Coastal Carolina, Auburn for me. I think those two, just the way Auburn and Coastal have looked this year, they've kind of been the best kept secrets in the sport. I mean, Auburn obviously not talked about as the LSU's, Arkansas, even Tennessee's and Texas have been in the SEC. And on the flip side, no one's really given enough respect, I think, including myself, to Coastal Carolina and the gauntlet that is the top half of the Sun Belt. I mean, Southern Miss is a very good ball club. Troy had a very legitimate argument to be an at-large. And, I mean, you saw what Texas State and some of those other teams could do when they played their best baseball. So I think for me, that those two are the ones I think will probably be the most closely contested. You know, I don't know if there's a single regional or super regional, that I think is going to be a blowout. I just think that there are a couple I'm a little bit more hesitant on. There's only one super I picked a sweep on, and that was Louisville over Miami. I'm a known doubter in Miami's consistency. I think when they play their best baseball, like they did in Hattiesburg this past weekend, they can honestly win the College World Series with what they have in that lineup with Daniel Cuvée and Dorian Gonzalez. But you know, on the flip side, they have their back half of their lineup is hitting under 280. So it's kind of a hit and miss kind of thing for Miami. So that one's kind of one I'm circling as maybe has a chance to be a little rough. And I think there is a world where that Murray State Duke one's not very good. If because both those teams kind of feel not like Cinderellas, but Duke, again, a very quietly good ACC team this year, but not necessarily like I don't think anyone on our ACC team thought that this would be the year Duke hosts a super regional. And here we are. So I think that one, with the factor in that, you know, I do think Murray State's a very good ball club, but it is very hard to replicate what you did a week ago in Oxford. But again, if anyone could do it, I think it's that offense at Murray State, because that's the one thing. Murray State can hit any pitching staff in the country. I think if they even went toe to toe with some of these best, you know, rotations, the UNCs, the Florida States, the LSUs, they're going to score. I just don't know if they have the arms to compete. And Duke has been known to play very high scoring games in their own ballpark comparatively when they're on the road. So that one has the potential, in my opinion, to potentially be ugly if the Cinderella has worn off a little bit on Murray State.
Do you think the ACC, and I may be asking the wrong guy here, I mean, it just means less, but the ACC got 5 teams in the Supers, the SEC got 4, and 2 of those by the hair of their chinny chin chin, for sure. Was the ACC a little underrated because the SEC was so deep this year? I'm not saying the SEC was overrated. Obviously, Vandy and Texas in particular, tripped over their own feet this last weekend. But Texas had a tough regional. Vandy Vandy just caught a team at the wrong time. I don't think it lessens what they did in the regular season, but the ACC I thought was a little bit slept on overall as a conference week in and week out.
Yeah, I think the ACC, and I'm obviously got the Texas Tech helmet behind you, the Big 12 too. I think both those conferences just didn't get enough respect. I mean, as much as I'm very pro ACC and I thought Georgia Tech should have host, I was just as ticked off that TCU didn't get a host or Arizona didn't get the host. I mean, you're seeing it right now. I mean, obviously TCU did not play well out in Corvallis, but what Arizona is continuing to do, staying hot. West Virginia kind of, doing what they did at that Clemson Super. I mean, there needs to be more of a conversation with that, in terms of just how dominant they really seem to be. I mean, they played a really bad game against Kentucky and still battled back to win that one to clinch that regional championship. So, I think it's, again, the SEC, I've never ran from it. I'm an ACC guy through and through, but it would be silly for me to say the SEC is still not the standard of college baseball. I mean, they win the national title almost every year. The last time the national title was won by an ACC team was 2015 with Virginia, 2016 Coastal. So, it's been a minute since it's been someone outside the SEC. So until then, right, there's no, dethroning of the SEC, but this does show you that the SEC wasn't far and above, especially because, again, the ACC and the SEC head-to-head in the regular season, the SEC, I think, was 12-10 or something. It was like a 2-game gap. So it wasn't like they dominated the ACC in what everyone deemed was just a large, giant gap between the two conferences. I think that if you throw Virginia in the tournament or Notre Dame in the tournament, I think they could have potentially made some noise just like Miami did. And I think you can say the same thing with some of those Big 12. I mean, Baylor was one of those teams that didn't have the resume to make an argument, but I think if Baylor would have gotten in, they'd have been a very tough out for anybody who got them as a 3 seed in their regional. So I think it was a very underrated conference as a whole.
Yeah, Baylor just didn't know how to deal with success. Like that was their thing. I think they weren't mature enough to they were finally doing some good things, and then they couldn't hold it. They just couldn't hold it. But all right, you mentioned that Florida State and Oregon State regional. Micah, I am a very proud 2002 graduate of Florida State University. Florida State's baseball, look, it's Shakespearean tragedy at this point. They are and it's not even there's not even an argument you can make in this sport, college baseball, for the greatest team that's never won one. It's them. Mike, it's them. The all-time winningest coach is their coach. He went there all the time. It was every other year, essentially. It felt like of his very long career. I know it wasn't that, but all the time. You look up and Mike Martin's in Omaha. He invented 2 and Q. He invented the slogan. So this is a situation, though, when you look across the super regionals with some of those top teams getting knocked out. Now, granted, North Carolina is still there, who was a bee in FSU's bonnet this year. They only beat them once, and all the times they played them. Is this a team, if they can get through a very good Oregon State this week, that can make similar and more noise than they made in Omaha last year in Link Jarrett year 2? I lost it.
Yeah, you're muted.
You're muted. There we go. No, lost you again.
There we go. We got it now.
Okay.
Sorry, I have a cat that likes to meow for attention. So when I'm not talking, I try to mute myself so that you don't get too much background meows.
Yeah.
But that said, yes. I mean, last year they ran into the buzzsaw that was Tennessee, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, he swung. Let's call it what it is. I genuinely think if they call that a swing, I think Florida State wins the national title. I genuinely believe that's how cursed I think your program at Florida State is, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because the whole dynamic changes. I didn't think that pairing of 4, I didn't think anyone would come out of the losers bracket. That's why I'm a University of Virginia fan. I was yeah, we're done for at this point. Say goodbye when we dropped to North Carolina in game 1. So that one was obviously tough. And that's the other thing, for Florida State right now, is they're looking at the winner of Louisville and Miami in their first game, if I'm not. Yeah. So they're looking at that Louisville-Miami winner. I think if you're Florida State, if you were to get past that, you feel pretty good about that matchup, especially when it comes to your pitching staff and where it's set up. And again, Florida State has question marks with their bullpen, but their starting rotation has 0 question marks right now between Vellini, between Mendez, and obviously Jamie Arnold. That is a 1-2-3 that can easily win them a national championship if given the opportunity. So Like I think they're set up very well in that situation. And again, like the bottom half of their 4 pairing there to play on that first day is going to be a little bit tough, but it's not anything that I'm overly concerned about with Florida State. So I think, again, when you look at it that way, and there's a world where their pairing is 3 ACC and then Coastal Carolina and or Auburn. I mean, I think if you're Florida State, you would love to see teams you've either played against already this year or at least seen some film on, because you've probably watched film of Florida State versus Miami versus somebody, Louisville versus somebody, North Carolina versus somebody. So it's something that you're going to be familiar with. So I think from that standpoint, for Florida State, they have a realistic chance. And that's the nice thing about the sport this year. I mean, there's so much parity. I mean, we could have on the other side of the bracket 2 mid-majors facing off on the first game on the Saturday at 1 o'clock between Murray State and UTSA advance. Which if you'd have told me Murray State and UTSA were going to be playing in a College World Series head-to-head in 2025, 3 years ago, I'd have looked at you and said, "What are you on?" And like how? Well, how are you envisioning this? But this is a reality we're potentially looking at. So.
Tennessee and Arkansas is going to be a very good one. Obviously, Arkansas is a very good team. Tennessee, the defending champs, but they don't have their lineup. I mean, they don't have their lineup, particularly Christian Moore, who did swing. But and again, I knew it. I was on vacation. I knew it. Like I knew when they called him, like, well, he's going to get a hit now. He's essentially hitting 900 for the postseason. It's unbelievable. He's like Ohtani and Babe Ruth and Hank Aaron rolled into one in every single at bat. But this Tennessee, did they just lose too much off of last year's squad? And this is a team that's obviously with their great coach and the passion they have for the program. I was driving through Knoxville on a Friday afternoon with a 1 o'clock start, and it was packed out. So they're not going anywhere, but are they maybe not equipped to repeat?
I mean, it's going to be tough, obviously, for them to be able to do so. Just in general, even if they had necessarily some of the question marks solved that they thought they would. But I think for me, the biggest thing when it comes to Tennessee is just their starting rotation right now is just so wishy-washy. I mean, after Liam Doyle, you really don't feel great moving forward. And, it took Liam Doyle coming out of the bullpen. I still think they win that game if he doesn't, but they felt like they needed to go to Liam Doyle to finish off Wake Forest, a Wake Forest team, by the way, that had a lot of issues as well with their pitching staff. So, I just think that when it comes down to it, I don't know if I trust Tennessee's arms to be able to battle through it. And the worst part is, again, they are paired in a very tough spot because realistically, obviously, they're going to have to go win 2 in Fayetteville, something they haven't done in 20 years. They haven't won a series there in a hot minute. So they're going to have to do that, get over that hump with a very lethal pitching rotation that Arkansas has going forward. And obviously, I'm sure it's going to be a very calm, no fights, no ejections, no bad mouthing, no bat flipping in that series at all. I'm sure it's going to be super cordial there in Fayetteville. But then if they advance, there's a very good chance they're facing LSU in the nightcap game on Saturday evening in the first game of their College World Series appearance in 2025. And that's going to be a tough one too, because no matter who you're facing from LSU, you're going to be in for a pitcher's duel. So it's going to be really interesting to see if Tennessee can get, Marcus Phillips, let's say, to kind of hone in to kind of what he was doing earlier in the year against, let's just call it what it is, lesser competition. Mm-hmm. So if there's any coach I think can get his players to play their best, it's Tony Vitello. And it'd be silly for me to say that Tennessee is not still one of the top half of the remaining super regional teams in terms of talent. So makes it a very realistic opportunity. But again, they are missing. I think they are one thing they've been missing all year is that real glue guy like that Christian Moore was last year and Bargo was, and go down the list over the last few years for Tennessee. They've had those guys that just kind of felt like when push came to shove, again, Christian Moore gets second life. What does he do? Gets a hit, and next thing the game changes. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Tennessee has that this year.
Yeah. I wonder about that. Mike, I've really enjoyed having you on. We got to get you on more, especially in football season, when the propagandists start talking. Look, we're from Big 12 country. You're from ACC country. We need to form some sort of alliance to work through the nonsense. But certainly enjoyed finally getting to meet you and talk to you. And are you going anywhere this weekend?
I am. I'm actually returning to AC country after moving to Texas this past fall. So I'm taking tomorrow off. Technically, tomorrow will be a travel day, but I will be at the Louisville-Miami game on Saturday. And then I'm hoping there's a world where North Carolina and Arizona are playing a game 3, because I will be at the Duke game on Sunday against Murray State, with the hopes that they will actually stagger those start times so I can get 2 different super regionals in one day. But if not, then UNC would fall off the chopping block, because I've been to the Bosch so many times. And I was at their super regional last year. So not saying I don't need to see a super regional in Chapel Hill, but I've seen it before, where obviously this is the first time a super regional has made an appearance in Durham. So I will be for sure Duke Murray State, and then I will be catching a game as well of the Louisville-Miami series. So very excited to be back in the ACC world.
Micah Butel, College Baseball Central, and the podcast, It Just Means Less, ACC. Love it, Micah. Talk to you soon, man.
Absolutely.
This is 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. And we got a little off the radar going here in this segment to take a look at some stories from around the sports world. Some of them front page headlines and some of them just random things. Depends on the timing of the day and what all is going on. Today's a pretty busy day news-wise in general, but in sports as well. But let's start off with something we talked about at the top of the show and is very much top of mind, not off the radar, but the note I will give you about it is tonight – this very much on people's radars, Texas and Texas Tech, game number 2. Texas, if they win, they will be your softball national champions after being just so close, right on the doorstep the last few years. This would be their final breakthrough after the win last night, 2-1 over Texas Tech. If Texas Tech wins, then they will extend this series for another day and a winner-take-all on Friday. But that will get underway tonight at 7 o'clock Central on ESPN and ESPN+. So there's that. You already know that. Texas wins tonight. It's over. Tech wins, it extends. But here's the off-the-radar note about this. The TV networks well, in this case, ESPN that aired this game have to be very happy because apparently this game brought in over 2 million viewers last night on ESPN, which is, I don't know what the expectations were exactly for this game and for the television broadcast. I quite frankly didn't think about it much at all, but 2.1 million viewers for Texas Tech and Texas softball's Game 1 championship last night. That is a very healthy number, and I think you've got to be ecstatic about that if you are ESPN, obviously, but also if you are a supporter of softball and you want the game to grow and all those types of things. I think this series, even though just one game, and the College World Series as a whole has maybe seen some strides, but that's a massive number for that game last night. So good for them, good for the ladies, and everybody involved there.
Yeah, and the women's sports continue to grow, and the more women that grow up playing them, the more will be fans and follow them. And I think we're finally seeing that. And look, there's a lot of great storylines here. One, the big bad wolf is gone. I mean, Oklahoma is out of this thing. Mm-hmm. Texas Tech beat them. Texas has been sitting there waiting for this moment for them to be able to step up and claim it if they can. And then the game was great last night. Tech and Texas hate each other's guts.
Yeah.
They really hate each other's
Festive
guts.
atmosphere for sure.
Yeah. And so we don't get to see that rivalry much anymore in anything because of the conference departure of Texas. And, they got $1 million pitcher on the mound who had just a blank spot of a moment. Either that or her body doesn't know how to walk people.
That's still, you still go look back at that intentional walk, or that was supposed to be an intentional walk, and then she obviously leaves one right over the plate. And I don't know what happened there. I've tried to wrap my head around it, and she's too good to have just missed the mark, you would think. So either the ball slipped somehow after pitching that much, and she's her hands are sweaty or something, and or she just went blank or something, because nothing else really explains leaving that pitch where it was. But I mean, she's an incredible player. It was a mistake. However it occurred, it was a mistake clearly because it led to a hit that led to you giving up a couple runs and losing the game 2-1. So I think that won't happen tonight. I don't know what will happen tonight, but you wonder how Tech rebounds, because that was a heartbreaker, and definitely could feel the Tech fans last night just rightfully so in their feels, and just a wave of different types of emotions. I think anger was a part of that. I think sadness certainly was a part of that. And there was a lot of excitement before all that occurred because they were leading a good portion of that game. But the 2.1 million viewers, fifth most watched college softball game ever on ESPN platforms. It's up 11% from last year's Game 1. At one point, peaking at 2.8 million viewers. It was the most watched Game 1 Women's College World Series game ever. So there you go. Congrats to Texas and Texas Tech on a big night in general for the sport of softball and the state of Texas. And we'll see what Game 2 holds tonight. I just hope it's not one of those where it's 7-0 in the second inning, and then everybody just loses interest because the writing's on the wall. You know what I mean? And that could happen. I mean, you could be definitely deflated after the way things ended last night, but I got some faith that Tech will be ready to go. So we'll see if we get another night, or if tonight is the night for the end of softball season in Texas to hoist the national championship trophy.
And then they'll probably lock up the Learfield Cup, I would think.
I would think they were in good standing for that. I have not checked on the Learfield Directors Cup. I was actually going to do a segment when these sports finally do all wrap up and the spring semester is officially over, although I know it'll extend a little bit further. But I was going to go and dive into that and do maybe a couple of segments on where teams finished nationally, but also then from a conference standpoint. But, yeah, you would think Texas is in very good shape. And as you were saying that, I was trying to figure out where the latest is on that, but I don't see an updated list just yet. So I will keep working on that. The last update looks like a couple of months ago for what I'm seeing here. So yeah, I would think Texas is in very good shape. So softball tonight, as I mentioned, over on ESPN, and that'll get underway at 7:00. So there is that. Meanwhile, got the NBA Finals going on as well, as that starts to get underway. Oklahoma City and Indiana in the dream scenario for TV network executives. Not really, though, but it will get underway tonight, 7:30 on ABC. OKC, 9.5-point favorites at home, and that will be the kickoff. Also, we'll then see Game 2 Sunday, Game 3 Wednesday. So it's going to maybe it'll drag out for at least a week. I don't know this time next week if we're talking about like a 3-0 and the series almost being over. But it's safe to say that a lot of the good money is on Oklahoma City in this series. Almost feels unanimous that most people are picking them to win this championship.
Emory had to go receive some furniture that's being delivered to his house. So he's not here. He said his beloved Thunder in 5. I will say Thunder in 6.
Thunder in 6. Okay. Garrett, do you have any opinion whatsoever?
No, I would probably say I think Oklahoma City wins it, but if I had to put a game count on it, I would be lying to everybody.
Yeah, I haven't thought it out. I do feel like just all the signs point to Oklahoma City. And you do have a note there on the tickets and a couple of the notes, right, for the NBA Finals. Did you have that over there? Yeah, here we go. NBA Finals ticket prices. I mentioned this was not the TV network executives' dream matchup, Indiana and Oklahoma City. So ticket prices dropping 25%, but as you see, they're still averaging over $1,000 per seat. So, it seems like there's a little bit of a lack of demand, but I don't know. Why do you think that is exactly? Because I don't think there was much of casuals buying just random seats and then selling them off when they expected something different. So I wonder what's creating. Does that make sense what I'm saying there?
Yeah, I don't like.
It's not like you were an Ohio State fan that booked your national championship ticket and then they didn't make it and now you're dropping your tickets. This wasn't set up until a couple days ago. So I wonder what's causing the ticket drop price. And maybe I just don't understand that business well enough.
No, I mean, of course, it's a sliding scale of all that. And I mean, look, part of
the Knicks didn't make it in. That's why.
But that's the ticket prices. Like, like this is what's the tickets in Indianapolis and Oklahoma City. So I don't know why that would affect it.
Unless the Knicks fans had started buying tickets before, maybe that's why. Maybe that's the way around that. But NBA ticket finals prices have dropped 25%, but still got to pay a G just to get in there.
Yeah,
it's slightly out of my price range.
I was hoping Emory could maybe go up to one of them. He went to a couple playoff games actually over this stretch, but $800 is the get in the door price. So,
that's a pretty steep ticket. So either way, whoever's going up there, have fun with that. Going to be a big deal for whichever franchise is able to hoist that coveted trophy at the end of this thing, whether that is the Pacers or that is the Thunder, but it gets underway later on tonight. Garrett also passed along this. Steph Curry talking about a lot of things here lately, man, getting into the later stage of his career. So there's had some retirement talk that's been surrounding him, just the future of the Warriors, but also looking at Team USA versus the world. And the NBA is constantly sorting or trying to figure out ways to make their game more interesting. I mean, they've done this with the regular season. They've done this countless times with the All-Star format, it feels like, just trying to change things up and garner more interest. Well, we do know that it's going to be Team USA versus the world, the All-Star game in 2026. And we pointed out when this has been brought up previously that this could be pretty damn cool. I mean, you're looking at, obviously, Team USA, you think just right off the bat would have a great team, but you look up, and if you haven't been paying attention for the last 25 years, the world's got some pretty good players too, including in this final series. So USA versus the world. We know hockey got a big boost off of having that international Olympic-style competition for their All-Star game this past year. Matter of fact, the most talked about stretch of the NHL regular season by a long shot. The interest nosedived right after that back to normal, and then I think it's probably spiked up again for the playoffs. But there are more people talking hockey that have never talked hockey during that time. I don't know that this will have that same sizzle, but I do think it's much more interesting than whatever we've been watching the last few years. And because the world is such a formidable opponent, I'm actually kind of interested in this, and we'll give it a chance and see if it's this maybe the format that can stick that people get alongside with. But you're looking at Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, SGA, Victor Wembanyama. I mean, there's 4 of your starting 5 alone right there, and that alone is pretty damn salty. So that's just what you can kind of start creating the matchups, and and you start off with those 4 on Team World. That's pretty nasty right there.
Yeah.
And Team USA, like, you got some young up-and-comers, Minnesota, his name's escaping me. Anthony Edwards, yes. Anthony Edwards, of course. But you've also got some guys that are starting to get older. Curry and LeBron and Kevin Durant and names like that as well. So
yeah, no, I don't watch the NBA All-Star game because it sucked for 20 years. Like I remember watching one, and the only person who was really trying was Kobe because he didn't know how to turn it off. And even he was just like, towards the end of it. And I thought, well, this is not good. And then it's just, you watch the game and they don't want to they want to have the All-Star weekend and have a good time. I think the players do enjoy it, but I don't think they want to play the game at all. Like if it was just a skills competition, like they would be fine with that.
Yeah, if they don't want to play in this game, there's really no format they can do.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no format to make them care.
Yeah. So if they don't, then I don't know what you do.
Yeah, I mean, it still pulls in a good amount of viewers. It's still popular in its own little universe. But I think as far as attracting more viewers and getting the players themselves excited about it, that's the challenge, much like the NFL is faced with the Pro Bowl and trying to do all sorts of formats there. You think it'd be easier to fix in basketball where the game's really the only thing different is the effort, right? Whereas in football, you're worried about so many injuries and things like that could happen. So a little bit of a different piece. But, Team USA versus the world. LA All-Star game. So that'll be pretty cool there. Meanwhile, last night, I've been talking about postseasons. The NHL Stanley Cup Finals got underway. Game 1 goes to overtime and sees the home team, Edmonton Oilers, rip off the 4th goal of the game to one-up the Panthers there in sudden death. 4-3, the final. And just was an awesome game. I think we all ended up watching towards the end. You said you almost fell asleep if it had gone any longer, right?
I had.
Hell, I was just getting started, baby. I was like, this is my breakfast.
I had 10 seconds left in me. Like when they
much like the game.
Yes. Yeah, I had 10 seconds left in me. Literally, it was not going well. And they went to commercial about a minute before that for something, and I was like, oh crap! Like, oh man, here we go. Like I'm gearing up for this. And it was a really exciting game. Florida's second goal was very controversial.
A little bit.
Because he was in the crease, but I couldn't tell if he got kicked into the crease or not. And they upheld the goal either way.
Yeah, either way.
Yeah, either way, they upheld the goal. And so one of the things I thought once Florida took the lead, I was like, man, they're just so dynamic and good, and they're getting out there. But Edmonton never let them run away, So, this is going to be a really good series, I think. And
then they scored on just a beauty of a goal there at the end. Just great pass from McDavid and just the whole sequence. It really is a beautiful game, and I don't want to be one of those guys. Well, it's Stanley Cup time. Let me pretend like I care about hockey. I don't not care about it, but I won't say I'm a devout fan by any means. But when you do sit back and just kind of appreciate the movement that they see and how they set things up so well, it really is beautiful. It's a work of art in a lot of ways, and that last goal last night was very much that. So, Garrett, any thoughts on Edmonton going up 1-0?
I think this is one where you had to win. Like you had to sneak out a win at home because I don't think there's a scenario where they can actually go into Florida and get a dub there. And I think if they would have lost that game, it would have really set them behind in this series. I still think this goes 7. But at the end of the day, man, I think the injury with Hyman and him not being able to participate for Edmonton in this series will catch up with them. And I think Florida goes out and finishes them off at 7, essentially like they did last year.
So that will resume tomorrow night. No game tonight. We'll have NBA Finals on tonight, softball on tonight, and then the Stanley Cup Finals will resume tomorrow. Back in Canada as the Oilers try to make it 2 at home. So, got to wait.
As someone who I love watching elite athletes play. Mm-hmm. Even me, Mr. Women's Basketball
Die hard.
Like, look, when I get to see great players play, I enjoy it no matter what the sport is. That's why I get into the Olympics so much, because there's sports I legitimately know nothing about. But when you watch somebody who's legitimately great at this random thing that you don't really watch all that much.
Pole vaulting or something.
Pole vaulting. Yeah, there's the dude that went to LSU that's that's better than everybody else. And I don't know anything about pole vaulting, but watching him easily defeat all these other people who are the best in the world is amazing to me. So we watch hockey throughout the season, fairly regularly,
sporadically,
but not like Garrett does. But watching a guy like Connor McDavid is fascinating to me.
So awesome.
Because these are all the fastest skaters in the world and the smoothest at all this. And he's somehow different than that in a sport that it should be really hard to be as graceful and as fast as he is compared to all the other fast guys and strong guys that are doing it. He's amazing to watch. He's amazing to watch.
Yep.
And I truly enjoy it.
Yeah, man, it really is. It's art. Like I said, it's very cool to see that. So I really appreciate it. I love the Turner crew, by the way, like the broadcast, but also the in-between period guys. They do an
so
excellent
good
job
at all this.
Yeah, they're excellent.
And they're losing the NBA. Like, that's the thing. I think that when they lost the NBA, I think they probably told the NBA, like, you understand that we're better at this than everybody else, right?
Yeah.
We're better at this. We have the best play-by-play guys. We've got this great show. Look, their hockey show has Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
Gretz is just sitting up there. He's up there with Henrik Lundqvist and Anson Carter and Mr. Spit and Chicklets, Paul Bissonnette. Yeah, Paul Bissonnette. That's a good crew, man.
Yeah,
they really do a good job, and they actually, I feel like I'm learning something when I'm watching them, and so I enjoy watching those guys, and that was a fun broadcast last night, so that'll be back tomorrow night, but Edmonton up 1-0. And just a couple more notes here. You mentioned it just a few minutes ago. Aaron Rodgers is going to be signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers after a long awaited decision, not like LeBron's decision, not that hyped up, but as much as you can hype up a decision at this point for Aaron Rodgers in his career, which is clearly on the downslope, and you just wonder how much time he has left, and his decision could have been to retire, quite frankly, but he is going to be, as expected, going to Pittsburgh, agreeing to terms with them today. He'll join the team. At least expectations are for mandatory minicamp next week. So the Zoo's coming to Pittsburgh. They'll have to they probably have a few more media credentials being applied for at this very moment. But he will turn 42 next season. And he's expected to be the starter. So there you go. Any remaining thoughts on Aaron Rodgers? At this point, I just want to see him play football and just, it's not like shut up and dribble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, dude, enough of your wonky stuff. Like I have an appreciation for some of it. I've listened to Rogan. Like, I get where you're coming from. Sometimes you just veer so off course. I lose you. But man, ultimately, I just want to see you play football and see what you can do. So he'll get that opportunity with Pittsburgh.
He's intelligent enough. He's not as smart as he thinks he is, and I think that's why he's annoying.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, so like
anybody who's like that, no matter who they are. Yeah.
Yeah. He thinks he's a genius. He's far from being dumb, but he's decided that, like, sometimes, especially when you get to conspiracy theorists, the real story just gets too boring because, like, it's kind of a disappointing ending. Like, hey, why did this big thing happen? And you're like, well, this is what happened. And then they're like, oh no, it's got to be something more.
Be juicier than that.
Like, no. Like, human beings aren't competent enough to have a conspiracy like that.
On the flip side, there are times when you're like, that is not what sounds like.
There are times, but like some of the things they try to make, all that into. But on the football side of it, he's done. He's cooked. I don't think he's going to help the Steelers that much. I think they should have been much more aggressive if they want to win this year. Like, they're not winning the Super Bowl. They're not winning the Super Bowl. So if you're not, is it better to just have a year of Aaron Rodgers and fill the gap? Or is it like, okay, let's go be aggressive and try to get a young quarterback and try to change something up? I think that's bad. I'm very interested. He plays both of his former teams this year. Week 1 against the Jets. I mean, that'll be fun. Aaron Glenn was something to prove early on in his first go as the coach. Steve Wilkes, the defensive coordinator there, and then the Packers. I think it's week 8. So
NFL knows how to schedule things up, whether it's intentional or not. A lot of times it is. I don't know how intentional that was, but yeah, that is nice timing that they will get to play both those teams. However, that developed. I tried to find the updated Learfield standings. I don't think they've been updated, and I am not going to keep searching for that. But rest assured, for those that do care about such a thing, I will have a little segment or two on that once all the sports wrap up, and it is interesting to look at. But I think that's pretty much it, guys. So there you go. There's a few things off the radar.
Thank you, Craig. When we come back, Johnny Matches, John Machota, joins us from The Athletic. This is 365 Sports.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and John Machota of The Athletic. OTAs, minicamp, whatever you want to call it. I know they all have different things, but minicamp. Micah Parsons is showing up. He's been very demonstrative about that, and that is something he's going to do. This one's a little unique to the Cowboys because usually the agents do the thing where they like to make Jerry sweat a little bit, but outside the view of the media like you guys. But Micah Parsons changed it up a little bit. Why?
I don't know. What do you mean changed up? How do you think he's changed up?
I mean, by showing up. I mean, like Des Bryant, everybody else just.
I mean,
Dak
he showed up
there
for the media thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the
that's
reason
true.
why I'm not putting too much stock into it. He's not actually on the field. And then mandatory minicamp. I think that he'll be there, and I think that is a good sign. But I don't think it makes me feel any different about like where the contract is at. Like I don't know that it's going to get done next week because of that, and. It's just tough because if Jerry's not talking to Micah's agent, that contract's not going to get done with just Jerry talking to Micah. So
yeah,
it looks like both sides are just, when I say both sides, I mean the agent and Jerry Jones are kind of both waiting for whoever's going to make the next play. And in the middle of it is kind of Micah, who at any point, I guess he can agree to whatever deal he wants. The agent does work for him, but I mean, you can't rule out this thing getting ugly. I've said for a long time I thought it'd get done right before training camp, and I don't know if that's for certain. That would be great for Brian Schottenheimer and the new coaching staff, but yeah, I can't guarantee that. I mean, Jerry Jones, he can be pretty petty about this stuff. So, it's not like he can't franchise Micah Parsons. I mean, you don't want to get to that, but if he absolutely had to. So that's why I always laugh at when people are like talking about how Micah could force a trade and do all this stuff. Like, nah, not with the way the NFL's set up right now. So I can see both sides a little bit, of where they're coming from on this, but ultimately that's just the way the Cowboys do business with their big time star players.
I guess it's a good news, bad news situation. They could have saved tens of millions of dollars had they done this a year ago, before Myles Garrett and all those things. But the horse is out of the barn on that. But right now, there's not really anybody else that could maybe cut in line in front of him before training camp. So, the damage is
TJ Watt could.
Oh, TJ Watt, yeah.
TJ Watt and Aiden Hutchinson would be two people that could potentially do something there. I think from the Cowboys' perspective, I think, as much as we've talked about this over the years, they almost got to let one of these guys go, so that you have that as an example of, because up to this point, everybody that's held out, they've ultimately paid them,
Yeah.
And so until you have a point where like they do trade Micah Parsons or they do make a move like that, everyone's just going to assume, well, nah, just wait the Cowboys out. You'll get your money.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. John, George Pickens, obviously big story, with the trade and coming over and giving, the Cowboys a legit number 2 wide receiver, somebody who meshes at least skill set wise with what they appear to want to do on offense. Do you think that Brian Schottenheimer has maybe a different view on how to deal with emotional George Pickens than maybe Mike Tomlin, who's very, very old school, did?
He could. That definitely could happen. That's a good point. I think more so contract year, a change of scenery, playing alongside somebody that he obviously really respects in CeeDee Lamb, and then the best quarterback that he's played with. I think all those things probably carry a little bit more weight. But I think the change of scenery has probably been a big one for him. I just think that everything was trending in Pittsburgh. It probably wasn't going to be great for George Pickens. And so I think that a change of scenery is something that's really been a boost for him. And then, like I said, it's his contract year. Who's not going to try and play their best and do their best in an opportunity where this could be the biggest, contract he signs in his entire life. So I think all those things factor in a little bit more than the Schottenheimer side of it. But the thing about George Pickens is it's not like it's an off the field thing. It's in games, other teams possibly doing things that can draw him off sides, committing a penalty or an unsportsmanlike type that could set your team back. And so everything's great right now, and it'll probably be great in training camp too. But much like Brian Schottenheimer as the head coach, we really won't know until we see it on Sundays.
Yeah, I feel the other thing that we're getting, the bill of goods the Cowboys are going to try to sell the fans this year is that they really did their work at running back. And Jaden Blue is a really, really cool pick. Like, that's a very intriguing option. He never once has been a bell cow running back. They didn't have a 4th round pick, which could have really helped them maybe get somebody, when this was the running back draft of the last decade for sure. How do you think that plays itself out, given that Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams have not put together collectively between the two of them a good season in 3 years?
I think Javonte Williams will be the starter to open the season, but I think by the end of the season, Jaden Blue will be the guy. Not necessarily getting all the carries, but he'll be getting. I think he'll have the most opportunities, but I still think it'll be a committee type deal. But it is that running back room is the biggest question on offense. Defense has got a couple of questions. Offense, to me, I do think the offensive line will be better. I do think there's good depth in a tight end room. Obviously, Pickens helps wide receivers. If Dak's healthy, quarterback's fine. But running back is the one where, like, there's a lot of trying to project what it could be, and you really don't know because there's a lot of moving pieces there. And so another one we won't know for sure until Sunday, especially with the way that these practices go in OTAs and minicamp. There's no pads on. You can't really tell if a guy's going to have success running the football until the pads come on. So that's already, past the first week of training camp. So it's going to be a while before we really see which running back emerges. But, just being around Javonte Williams in the locker room, sounds like he's, a couple years removed from his ACL injury, and he's feeling like he was before that injury happened. And so I think that's a good sign for him, but it'll be tough to keep, I think, Blue out of the mix. And then Phil Moffer from Clemson could factor in as well. So it's a big question mark. I think that it might be the biggest question mark at running back of every team in the NFL right now. They feel good about it. That's the thing. I look at it as it's a major question mark. They apparently don't.
They really don't. And there's always one that they really feel like they're the cat who caught the canary, on it. And that's the one this year. Defensive questions, I would say it's the secondary is the biggest one. And obviously linebacker depth is an issue. I don't really worry about their skill set there, so much, just as a depth thing. And then Mozzie Smith, right? Actually for the two guys from Michigan, Mozzie Smith and Luke Schoonmaker, this is kind of your time to shine, to see about that next contract. And I'll ask you about Schoonmaker in a second. But Mozzie Smith, especially since he's the first round pick.
Yeah, that's another position where I just don't get the sense that the team is as concerned about it as we are on the outside, and that's defensive tackle. They feel good about Osa and Solomon Thomas. Those are going to be more of your three techs. But the one technique, if you don't get a great production from Mozzie Smith, then you're leaning heavily on Jay Toya, the late round pick. Mm-hmm. So, and then he might be fine. I mean, he looks the part. He's obviously the big run stopping defensive tackle. He meets the profile. There's no question about that. But that they need it seems like they need another run stopper defensive tackle, but they don't appear to have that interest at all. I think corner is still in play for them potentially making a move, whether it be Stephon Gilmore. I think having an offseason where they get George Pickens and Jalen Ramsey seems to be asking for a lot from a team that doesn't really do stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So Jalen Ramsey would fix a lot of things right away. If they can make that happen, that would be great. But corner is a big question mark just because you got Diggs coming back from a major knee injury, and so you don't know exactly when he'll be back. And then you spend a second round pick on Savon Ravel, or a third round pick, but he could have went in the second. Some people think if he didn't have the knee injury at East Carolina, he might even been a late first round pick. So he's working his way back from his own knee injury. So he hasn't been working into practice. And while they maintain he'll be ready for week one, it's still a rookie corner coming back from a major knee injury. So there's question marks there. You lose Jordan Lewis in free agency. So it's like you make a trade for Kyer Elam. The team's been really high on him. He's been working with the ones. But then you have Deron Bland, but then who's that third corner? Every team needs at least 3-4 good corners. Who's that third, fourth guy? Andrew Booth, Kalen Carson. And if it's not, then I think that's where you have to make a move for a veteran like Stephon Gilmore, or make a move for a trade with a team to get somebody else off there. I mean, corner's just too important not to have, be in a better spot than they are right now.
Yeah. All right. Luke Schoonmaker's in an interesting spot. He's had little blips of this guy could be something. Jake Ferguson is an impending free agent. We know the Cowboys really like Jake Ferguson. He's a really good tight end. They've got good depth there, but he is a free agent coming up, and there's no guarantee what happens when the season is over, if they want to keep him or not. So this is a bit of a prove it year for Luke Schoonmaker, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I mean, the lineup, they got a lot of Big Ten tight ends there, because I'm telling you, Brevin Spanford's another guy. They signed him as an undrafted guy, out of Minnesota a couple years ago, but he's a guy the coaching staff likes a lot. And he could be a guy that could be a factor more this season than he's ever been before. That's the one that Luke Schoonmaker has to beat out, because Jake Ferguson's clearly the one. But one of those other guys, they absolutely have to step up. I mean, like I was saying with corner, you need 3-4 good corners. You need at least 2 good tight ends nowadays in NFL football, probably in in college and high school as well. But certainly they need a tight end to kind of bridge that gap. And it could be Brevin Spanford. And if it's not, then I think it's one of those deals with the same thing as how they got Schoonmaker. Then you have to go into next year's draft, and tight end I don't know that they would take one in the first round, but again, in the second or third round, that's probably what they'll target if they can't keep Jake Ferguson. So I do think Jake Ferguson's going to have a good year, though. He's coming back he had a bunch of injuries last year, and he knows that this is a big year for him. And let's just be honest, he's going to see a lot of great matchups, because teams are going to do everything they can to take away CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. So that should present a lot of opportunities for guys like Jake Ferguson in the passing game.
Yeah, absolutely. John, I need you to ask Brian Schottenheimer a question. It's kind of weird. but I trust you to do it, and you're the only one I do trust to do it. He was quite famously a Gators quarterback who I think maybe threw a pass. Like when he was there, I watched him I still do watch him every week. You got to scout the enemy. But he was the clipboard guy, and he was always he was attached to Steve Spurrier's hip. I would like to know how many times in his life he caught a stray visor.
Yeah, he's talked about it a little bit. But it's funny that you say that, because as you were saying that, all I was thinking about is I was like I really like Brian a lot. He's a great dude. I mean, he's like, I feel like I say this about all the people that I like, that I cover. I always say, like, man, he's the type of person you'd love to have him as your neighbor, real good dude, And so, I mean, obviously I like Florida State. But when you said that, it made me think, I'm like, is Brian Schottenheimer going to make more money in football than Danny Warfel? And it's kind of crazy to think that, but maybe hanging out with Spurrier and picking up some stuff there. Obviously, Marty Schottenheimer, very successful NFL coach. That helps too, being a coach's son. No question about it. But I mean, being the clipboard guy, it's kind of worked out pretty well for Brian. I mean, to say that one day you can be, don't get me wrong. I don't know. This is tough. I'll ask you. All right, here we go. You can one day be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, or you can win a Heisman Trophy at Florida State and lead them to a national championship. What do you want to do?
Oh, my gosh. That's tough, because I've wanted both those jobs in my life.
The Cowboys job, I would think, pays better. But now we're going to say at those times, because in NIL times, if you win a Heisman at Florida State and lead them to a national championship, your NIL is probably real nice. So.
Yeah, and then, look, here's the thing. There's, it could be a pretty cool life if I don't have the chops to be I don't know, I might say Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
I might say Heisman Trophy.
I don't know how other people feel about this, but, I'm like you, big college football fan. So, the Heisman Trophy will always carry so much weight with me. It's by far my favorite trophy. To get a chance to win that, oh my God, it'd be tough to pass it up. But man, being the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, I guess, you know what, we'll have to come back to this later on in Brian's career, because if he's successful, I think you got to go with the Cowboys. You know what I'm saying? But if it's just it's a solid but not great, whatever, and there's a lot of stuff he has to deal with Jerry and players and things like that, then it's clearly the Heisman Trophy, national champion. But to have success and lead the Cowboys back to prominence, it'd be tough to pass that one up, man.
Yeah, absolutely. John, are we going to get to, even though they don't come our way, are we going to get to go to a game this year if we plan it out right? Is there a bye week that falls for you?
Yeah, they really aggravated me last year. I spent a lot of money to travel when the Cowboys were in Atlanta to go see them play North Carolina, and just how poorly they played in that game. And that was my first time back at Doak, and oh man, probably 6-7 years. And it was just all my previous trips to Doak had been wins and positive and fun. And then it was just a beating, Mac Brown finally beat Florida State. It was such once the season gets around, I'll probably get myself into going to a game. But right now I'm kind of frustrated fan. So it's going to be TBD for me.
Yeah, it's TBD. Here's the thing. I told my friends, because they asked, I said, look, it is very contingent on that Alabama game.
Yeah.
How that goes. If it's a good game and it's close and you see positivity, then you can maybe talk me into it. If they win it, it'd just be Charlie Sheen getting back on cocaine.
Well, the thing I'll say, because it ties in with all of football for me, is it's been so easy for us the last, I don't know, really post Jimbo to you can just tell, you don't even need to look at the scoreboard. You can just tell by watching the game, dumb penalties, lining up wrong, foolish mistakes and things like that. Just an unorganized team. It just says so much, and I don't know if it just football does that better than any, but it's it's been so easy for me to watch them and know how it's going to be during that season very early on, just because of just basic things, just lining up, not getting the silly penalties and stuff like that. And so if that's out of there, maybe they win 7-8 games and I'll be happy, get the train back on the track. That would be great. I would love that.
Yeah, if they beat Alabama, though, my problem is going to reemerge. It's
You're gonna start giving to the collective again.
Yeah, like, all right, what do you guys need? I'll get a second mortgage. What do you need? Get him in there. John Machota of The Athletic. John, always great to see you, bud.
Hey, good seeing you too. Thanks for having me on.
All right, John Machota of The Athletic. Next up, we continue our slow stroll through the valleys of the Big Ten schedule with Ohio State, the defending national champ. That's up next. This is 365 Sports.
Father's Day weekend just around the corner. And what are you going to have on the grill? For your father, or buy him steaks he can cook for you like the good old days? Waco Custom Marketplace, the Bauer family, Lake Air Drive in Waco with a full-service butcher shop. And you walk in the door, there's a couple of rows of all the various necessities you need, from canned goods to whatever, chips. And then there's a full-service bakery off to the right with bread and sweets, cold beer and wine, and the tubs of brisket and tri-tip. When you walk back to the butcher shop, there's seafood. And then after that, you'll see the pork and poultry. And then that facing you, all those great-looking steaks. Sirloin, New York strip, ribeyes, bone-in or otherwise, fillets. And they have a tomahawk chop that you can just, oh my goodness, just devour that, or have your father devour that for Father's Day. They are wonderful. Waco Custom Marketplace, Father's Day, coming up soon. 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Heathcott Heinemann Wealth Management Group with Edward Jones in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers, everybody, the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
1, 2.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. He keeps me coming back. He cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy, last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. And Craig, we're finally here to Ohio State. And this we have taken the long and winding road through the Big Ten.
Yeah, it's taken a while. These giant conferences take about twice as long, or at least it feels like they take about twice as long as maybe they used to. But, yeah, just taking a look at day by day. I mean, got a nice little countdown to the season, getting closer to media days here in about a month or so. But in the meantime, in between time, amongst all of the other things we discuss over the 3 hours every day. We've inserted this over the last few months. And so, yes, alphabetically, we're now into Ohio State territory and taking a glance at their 2025 schedule as they look to defend their fresh, brand new, nice national championship. They won as the victors of the first ever. What did we just have? A 12-team playoff?
Yeah.
I get so confused with all the things that we talk about. Where were we last year? Was that 4? Was that we at 60? Where were we?
Yeah, and
12.
And so nice for a young upstart company like Ohio State.
Yeah,
too.
Good for them to have this measure of success. No, I mean obviously they've, they're Ohio State. Not much more needs to be said than that. But how about that? I was thinking, Michigan's title depends on what glasses you want to look through of how tainted it is, or your takeaway from that title or whatever. But in the record books, it will say Michigan Wolverines won the 2023 national championship. But how about that for Ohio State? For all the S they had to eat for like a year because Michigan finally broke through and won, they're like, oh yeah, enjoy your honeymoon of like a year because we're going to win it right back and we're going to be the ones to then brag about it. That's a rivalry for you, isn't it? That's the way rivalry should go. So the two blood rivals now having won back-to-back national titles, will it be one of them again or will it be somebody else in this last year of the 12-team playoff? Well, the path for Ohio State starts off at home on August the 30th. As we know all too well now, an 11 a.m. kickoff, as has already been announced, for Big Noon, as they will play host to the Texas Longhorns right out of the gates. So about as sexy of a non-con matchup as you can get. Certainly one of the better matchups you could put together on paper heading into next season, and we will get that right out of the gates. Then a little bit of a step down there in week number 2 for the Buckeyes as they will welcome in Grambling State on September the 6th. Then the following week, closing out the non-conference, just like that. Nice, clean schedule. Non-con, conference play, postseason. Not some of this like week 13 you play, or not week 13, but you know what I mean. Like here's Centennial, week 11 for no reason really other than we just want to get that gimme win. But I like nice, clean schedule. The 3 non-con games all in a row, and then they take their first bye week. So it's like as perfect as you could put together, really, and sort of breaking it up. So Texas at home, Grambling State at home, Ohio at home. The Buckeyes will not leave until the other side of the bye week, which we'll get to, which opens up Big Ten play. But that's their starting 3 games for 2025.
Yeah, and that Texas, look, they're gonna beat Ohio and they're gonna beat Grambling. And to you, the Ohio State fans, enjoy that halftime show. I know that they're very proud of their band, and as they should be. It's one of the very best ones there is. But Dot in the I is about to look dorky as hell.
It'll look. I don't know about dorky. It won't look as funky as their compadres. Yeah,
they're
and I mean that in the best kind of way. Like,
it's about to. You're about that guy. Somebody's gonna go prancing out there like, oh, and they're like, I don't know if I should. I don't know if I should be doing this today.
Yeah, and I don't even know, like, is Grambling well known for that as much as some of the others are? I'm not even sure.
They've got a fantastic
Yeah,
team.
I mean, I figured so, but I know that there are degrees, like anything else, of like who the best of the best are and all that kind of deal. But
Grambling, Southern, Florida A&M. The Florida A&M band got suspended for a few years because of hazing, but they were, I mean, they were. And look, I always had legitimate beef with the marching chiefs at FSU because the drum major and I was there had no idea what was going on in the game. He would, Winky would get sacked for like a 13-yard loss against Florida. He'd play the tomahawk chop. He'd like, hey, I don't know, just leave it out. Here they did a Star Wars themed thing like 5 times in a row. So like if I could go across town and see fam, like I've done it. It was great. Like they were a blast. So, but Grambling will have that. So just a warning, Ohio State, don't try too hard. Just bring your best, but don't try to outdo yourself.
World famed Grambling State University Tiger Marching Band. So I assumed, but I didn't want to assume incorrectly and just lump them in with all the other HBCUs. But that's their thing, right? HBCUs know how to party. The bands get down like no other. So that'll be a scene in Columbus. So that's their non-conference schedule. Then we get into the Big Ten schedule. there on September 27th after getting their first bye week under their belts. Ohio State will then turn around and will be on the road for the first time as they go to Washington to take on those longtime Big Ten rivals, the Washington Huskies, right? But no, that's cool, and that's one of those matchups that otherwise might have been like somebody kind of but Washington's new and different location to go to, and I think both SEC and Big Ten are obviously loving life with the expansion that they got the last go around.
Yeah.
I don't know how excited people were about some of the like Rutgers, I don't mean to always single them out, but being able to go to the West Coast and the West Coast being as diverse as it is, I think that's a cool road trip for Buckeyes fans, obviously, and that would have been a cool non-con game for many years. Now it's a conference game.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of excitement in Seattle this year about the Huskies and their quarterback.
Better be.
Yeah, so look, they had the coaching change, and obviously, that means that like the waterfall of transfers happened. Not only that, like they really didn't lose that many transfers overall. They just had, built up this team that was full of seniors and draft eligible guys and the best team they've had in a decade. And they all left at the same time, so really there's more graduation in the draft that got them in the portal, Jalen McMillan and Jalen Polk and
they all left. That was a good run though.
Yeah, it was a great run. Michael Penix is gone. The running backs are gone. All that stuff. So I actually think that should be a good one. That Illinois game on October 11th. That's going to be. That's going to be one of the biggest games in Champaign in a long time, considering what people think about. What Brett Bielema's team could be this year. So that's going to be a really, really interesting one, and that's an upset alert for sure for them.
Yeah, we'll get to that one in a second. You go Washington on the road, then Minnesota at home on Saturday, October the 4th, and then the trip to Illinois you're now talking about on Saturday, October the 11th. So they will start to hit the road a bit more. So at Washington, Minnesota at home, at Illinois, then at Wisconsin the following week. So back-to-back road games there, and then their second bye week before they get prepared for a 5-game stretch to close the season. So this really is, I think this might be the most black and white schedule of your non-con and you break, and you play half of your schedule in the conference, and then you break, and you play the other half of your schedule in the conference, and then you go to the postseason. Everybody else has got all sorts of combinations. This is as clear as you can possibly be. I feel like on any of the schedules we've touched, and we've done 3.5 conferences at this point. So that middle section there at Washington, Minnesota at home, at Illinois, at Wisconsin, and then your break, obviously. 3 road games in that stretch after being at home for the non-con. So they will be road tested. I don't know how tested they will be. They should be tested, but they will definitely be road weary, I would think, after 3 games in 4 weeks on the road.
Yeah, for sure, especially since one of them's all the way out to Seattle and all that. That's going to be something. But if they're breaking in a ton of new players themselves. Now, they do have the best player in the whole country in Jeremiah Smith, so that can help the break-in a little bit easier. But yeah, this we'll see, especially coming off this bye. And again, they couldn't have written this up any better, how it is, especially considering who they get coming out of the bye.
Yeah, and so then coming out of that second and final bye week, you get your 5-game stretch to close the season. So 3, 4, 5 is how they go in order of the breakup of the schedule. And that last 5 starts with a home game against Penn State on November the 1st, then a trip to Purdue on November the 8th, followed by back-to-back home games against UCLA and Rutgers on the 15th and 22nd before the big game against Michigan in Ann Arbor on Saturday, November the 29th. No Friday games. Surprise, surprise for the Buckeyes. No Thursday night game. No Sundays. Just all Saturdays, baby. And that is how it will close up the final 5. So you get Penn State and Michigan. And then who really knows with Purdue, UCLA, and Rutgers of what to expect. But there you go. There's Michigan's last stretch there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Ohio State. Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. I'm sorry, Buckeyes.
I'm sure that when they suggested to Fox that they move that Texas game, they're like, "Oh, you're willing to move days? How do you feel about Friday?" And they're like, "Shut your face."
Yeah. Ohio State doesn't play on Fridays.
Peacock calls up, is like, "Hey, I heard you guys or something." Like, no, look, stop it. That was a one-time thing. Here's the thing that jumps out at me about this schedule. Outside of the Michigan game, which obviously they have a game right before it, their two other toughest games, and no offense to Illinois in this, but they get Texas the first game of the season, so they have extra time to do game plan for that one.
Yep.
And then they have the bye before Penn State, which Penn State also has the bye. So it's not like an advantage, but they both get, like, in those two mammoth top 5 matchups that they're going to have, both teams have extra time to prepare than they would have, just coming off a game and then another game, which I think is super interesting, particularly for Ohio State, who has 2 of these games. Penn State actually has a bye before they play Oregon. Oregon doesn't have a bye before they play Penn State. As a matter of fact, they play Oregon State right before it. So those are all things I just kind of noticed. But for the Big Ten, certainly lined it up. They wanted to make sure that what could be, like Ohio State and Michigan's always going to be the biggest number they probably have because of the tradition.
Oh, yeah.
But their other big in-conference game is going to be laid out perfectly with they both have the same roll through the schedule and the same bye week beforehand, and there'll be some hype rolling into that one.
Yeah, there will. So they got Penn State on the schedule. They got Michigan, of course, on the schedule. As far as the teams, Texas, obviously, as far as the teams, they will not play out of the Big Ten because conferences are massive and you don't play half your league anymore. Mm-hmm. Nebraska, Iowa, USC, the biggest one, Oregon, obviously. Indiana, Northwestern, Maryland, and Michigan State, all teams that are not on the regular season schedules. That sounds crazy when you really start. I know we got the warnings about that when the conference is expanded, but dude, I just listed 8 teams are not going to play that are in their own league.
Yeah.
That's just kind of crazy. So would have liked to have seen Oregon again. Obviously, just give us the biggest games possible. Mm-hmm. Maybe they'll see each other in the playoff. Who knows with Indiana and the kind of magic that they return from last year. But, they'll miss some pretty good teams on paper, but they got definitely a manageable schedule with a couple of big question marks on there. Certainly the bookend games, Texas to start, and then Michigan on the road to close it out. So there you go. You're defending national champions. There's the Ohio State schedule, and we move on. And I would guess that Penn State's next.
Oregon.
Damn it. Yes, of course. How could I forget? Oregon Ducks. So we will get to Oregon. You already know they don't play Ohio State in the regular season because I've already said that. But we will get to the Oregon schedule as they look to get back to the massive success that they also had last year up until the screwy seeding in the playoff, which was their big beef. And look, if I was an Oregon fan, it would have been my big beef as well. So we'll get to the Ducks probably tomorrow as we continue to trudge through these schedules, but there's the Buckeyes.
Yeah, again, we're not we're stopping along the way in the Big Ten. If there's the world's biggest ball of yarn or a steak eating challenge, we're doing them.
Right.
And then we'll get to the cities when we get to them.
Right.
We'll get to those colleges. But we have that, and then we have do we have the SEC after that?
I believe so.
Yeah, we finished off with the SEC.
Okay, so we have to finish off with the SEC, America's most important conference.
Yes. Yep. Hey, save the best for last. That was all intentional. No, it wasn't. I think we just went we started off with the Big 12.
We tied it together with Notre Dame, right?
No, what happened was
I bridged it with Notre Dame.
I said it'd be cool to do the Big 12 schedule just to have a segment every day. And then we're like, let's do everybody. And so here it was just a Big 12 thing initially, and it's turned into this 6-month long dive into everybody in the nation. So here we are. We're halfway through. We will finish before the season starts. We have to finish before the season starts.
I think we need to set the goal of maybe finishing before media days, but
we better stay on track then.
Yeah.
Because the leagues are big, man. I mean, you're talking 18 teams in this bad boy.
We're not even halfway through the Big Ten yet.
No. So there you go. We're making progress.
So that's 24 shit. No, that's still a lot. Okay. When we come back, my top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Founded in 1910, Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Made to the highest standards, our products won't let you down. We give you the confidence to get out there and explore. Inspired by the past, devoted to the present, and built to inspire a multi-generational future, Samsonite is here to elevate your journey. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Flag and Anthem. Go to flagandanthem.com, use our promo code 365sports for a discount at checkout. Teams that are not blue bloods yet. There are a lot of teams that are, they're like right there. They can come and play golf at the country club with a member, but they're not full members yet because they haven't won that national title. And I bet you, almost all of you, put it in the chat right now, who you think number one is. I bet you get it right. Number 5, Ole Miss. Look, Ole Miss is the furthest out of this category because they haven't really done much in their own conference as far as challenging for the title and that over their history. But lately, under Lane Kiffin, they've been a regular contender. They get close, but you've got to at least win a conference title and get to some playoffs before you're in that club and win a national title. But Lane Kiffin's gotten Ole Miss consistently as close to great as anybody in program history has. So I've put them right here on the outside, although the proof is always in the pudding. They've got to actually do it. Number 4, Michigan State. Michigan State has all of the benefits of pretty much everybody in the Big Ten, except for, say, like Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. Like, they might have a little bit more, but Michigan State has the funds. Look what they commit to basketball. Look what they've committed to football in the past. If Jonathan Smith can get this thing rolling and this team can actually win a national title, don't forget, they were in the 4-team playoff. This was a team under Mark D'Antonio that was getting close to its heights. Nick Saban once coached at Michigan State and got them to heights. I mean, it's been a long time, but Michigan State is a team that is just kind of like right there, and then I could have put them very much in the fandom zone had they won a national title before. They're in their own little mud pit where they can't really get out of it and get over the top to become truly elite. They're just good. Number 3, UNC. I put them on this list because they parade as a blue blood, and they very much are in basketball. And they have a lot of sway in the ACC, and they're desirable when you talk about conference realignment talks and all that nonsense. But they have not won a football conference title in 40-plus years. They have no business being anybody's football discussion, but if they were to rally and get one title, they don't have to have a bunch. One ACC title, one national title. If they got those two things, presumably they would come in the same year. If they could ever do that, then they could finally call themselves a football blue blood because they've got everything else going for them. They've got money, they've got backing, they've got facilities, they've got a cheating scandal, which almost every blue blood has. They have one of the most famous ones that they legally argued their way out of. Pretty brilliant. Now, put it to the test. In fact, maybe the greatest defensive football player of all time, Lawrence Taylor, came out of North Carolina. They've got all these other things. They need maybe a Heisman Trophy winner too, wouldn't hurt, but all of these things. But they are on the outside, and they're a less accomplished version of the team I'm about to talk about, Texas A&M. Texas A&M has 0 things that the other blue bloods have. I mean, they don't have. They have everything a blue blood has, except the modern era national title. Yes, they won in 1939. Yes, that team was great in 1957. And they've had a couple teams that were, if you took the playoff era and moved it back to some of the great R.C. Slocum teams or Manziel's year, those are teams that probably could have made some runs in a playoff. But since that didn't exist, this is a team that in its greatest years has just rammed its head against the ceiling. And it's not for lack of passion. They're the most passionate fan base you're ever going to find. I mean, they have camp for it to teach you about it before you even take a class, for God's sakes. They have the resources. Eventually the world will run out of oil, but not anytime soon. And they have an NIL collective, like all these things that you would think would be right there. But the Aggies cannot get out of their own way. So they're stuck in this. Again, a conference title, getting close to a conference title, anything else, and winning a national title would make them the blue blood they so desperately want to be, but they're not. And that gets us to number 1, the Oregon Ducks. Quack, quack, people. Oregon has been like the hanger-on of the blue blood country club for the longest time. They've gotten right there, losing the national title game to Ohio State in 2014, the first CFP. Since then, they haven't gotten to the finals, but they've had a ton of really good teams, but no really great teams that have been able to break through and win that. Can they finally do it? Otherwise, they're the most blue-balled of blue bloods ever because they have been really good and really fun, and friggin' Nike funds their program, but they cannot break through and get that title. I have polls to read, or Andrew will kick me jiu-jitsu style.
Welcome back, Garrett. Golly.
I'll take that one.
Usually we can rely on you, but
I'll take that one.
But yeah, I mean, if you were worried about me having a stroke, that wasn't what was going on. And we taped that yesterday, clearly, because I have a different shirt on 2 seconds later. Let's see. I mean, that's it. Oh, the polls. Golly.
That'll mess you all up.
Yeah, messed me all up. Andrew Villain's polls. Been working very hard on them. Who will stand out in tonight's game 1 of the NBA Finals? SGA, the runaway winner at 52%. Tyrese Halliburton, 27%. The Code Rack, Chet Holmgren. I'm going to get that to stick. 12%.
You're pushing it.
Yeah, I'm not going to stop. It's the perfect nickname for him. And Pascal Siakam at 9%. Siakam's been great throughout the playoffs. He's fun to watch. He's very, very, very fun to watch. And I'm sure the people in Toronto miss him dearly because he helped them win a title with Kawhi Leonard when he was there, and he might help the Pacers win one. As a matter of fact, they have to get exactly out of Pascal what they got out of him in the last series to beat the Thunder because their defense is so fantastic and so good. And I'm disappointed that Lou Dort was not on this. But Craig, any comment on this?
No, I think SGA is the safe bet. I think Oklahoma City is the safe bet to win the series. This is not obviously gambling advice of any sort, and I'm no expert, but it just seems like everything's pointing in that direction. So if OKC wins the series, it's safe to assume, pretty safe putting your money on SGA being a big reason for that. But yeah, there's a lot of talented guys. I think this is one of those that could go to any number of players depending on how the series plays out. But yeah, SGA would be the odds-on favorite, I would expect. And I was thinking about this. Do you know what college that Pascal Siakam went to by any stretch? Because we know Tyrese Halliburton went to Iowa State, and we know that Chet Holmgren went to.
I just looked this up.
Where'd Chet Holmgren go? To Gonzaga.
To Gonzaga.
Yeah. And then SGA was a Kentucky guy.
Yeah.
Do you know where Pascal Siakam went?
I was looking this at the roster the other day. I'm blanking.
Yeah, it's just random. I was just thinking about it, but New Mexico State.
Yeah.
So how about that? For all the, maybe the transfer portal had been around, he'd be like a Kentucky guy too, or a Duke guy or something. But hey, go New Mexico State. How about that?
I saw a picture of John Calipari at I think in one of the playoff games, and he took a picture with like all the guys. He was like, I got to check on my guys. And if I was a Kentucky fan, I would be like in awe and also angry that like, here are the players that are deep in the playoffs. Half of either team was coached by John Calipari.
Yeah,
and
basically.
you didn't win anything after that Anthony Davis title.
It's
how
crazy.
are you getting all the best players in the NBA now and you're not winning titles in college?
And now he's probably going to get another bump in pay because of the whole Knicks situation. I will mention the news that just came down. It's not like big, massive breaking news unless you're a BYU fan or you're an anti-BYU fan. We'll talk about it more in the stack tomorrow. I feel like that's where we can kind of spread out and talk about it a little bit more. But it is worth mentioning because it's occurred in the last hour or so that BYU head basketball coach Kevin Young has signed a new long-term extension with the Cougs. And he was being picked at by the Suns for their head coaching job, and I'd imagine maybe the Knicks as well.
Yeah.
But he's going to be, because of his NBA background and all of that, he's going to be a guy that when jobs open up, he's going to probably get mentioned for some of them. And so BYU being proactive and locking him down with a new extension after that Sweet 16 run. And obviously you got AJ DeBonsis coming in, so there's a lot of excitement around that program. So that's a big deal to have that out there in public amidst all these rumors and everything. So there you go. We'll talk about it more tomorrow.
All right, poll numero dos. What excites you most about the new USA versus World NBA All-Star Game? Team USA star power, the winner, the overall revamp right there, 3% behind, fresh competitive edge at 23% in global talent showcase. I think the overall revamp is something that needs to happen, obviously. But the thing I'll be most excited about is if the revamp, means effort.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately what it'll come down to. That's why they've made changes, is to try to increase effort and interest as well. So if this doesn't do it, like I said earlier, I don't really know what you can do at this point to make the game more interesting or to make players play harder other than put national pride on the line and hope that they are like the hockey players this past season that partook in the NHL's international all-star replacement. What was that called again? Four nations. Yeah, Four Nations. We got Three Nations Brewing. Is that what I'm thinking of? Yeah. So you hope that you can create that type of excitement. I don't know that it'll translate just like that, but they're running out of ideas. So might as well do this one. And tell you what, be really interesting to see what those rosters look like. Because if there's any sport other than hockey where you're going to have, baseball would be pretty good as well. Yeah. A lot of like Dominican and Cuban players, Japanese players. Yeah. If you did that, they'd be a pretty good damn roster, starting with Ohtani.
Yeah, it would. I mean, look, I part of me thinks that they should just do the World Baseball Classic in the middle of the season every year.
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea.
Because the World Baseball Classic the last time was awesome.
I mean, soccer does Champions League in the middle of it all as well. So, but anyways, All-Star Game could maybe be more interesting as a result of these changes. If not, then I don't know what you do.
Yeah. The Major League Baseball All-Star Game would just have to be USA versus the world, I guess. But they would have to change everybody gets one team in kind of a thing. So anyway, well, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to everybody who's on the show today. Tomorrow, we've got Mark Schipper of Fifth Down College Football. Speaking of baseball, I have Levi Weaver of The Athletic working on the Fresno State Athletic Director and more. This is 365 Sports.